Frizzy, aka Why Must I Sign In, and welcome to the stream for the Eclipsis versus Deadpool Alliance DPA semifinal matchup. I'm joined in the casting booth by Abra,
Hello, everyone.
Helveticano,
Hey,
and Poor Nexus.
hi, hi.
So, this is the teams of Luigi, I believe, and Alpha is the captain of DPA. So,
I don't know about you guys, but I'm wearing my tie tonight, especially just for this game.
Oh, I'm excited. This should be a great game. I'm actually checking here. I'm wondering if the official roster shows QQQ as the official captain of ECL. I think it does, though.
yeah, so what are we expecting in terms of composition?
Why don't we go ahead and let's have Abra come up with his own analysis.
All right. Well, I do believe that we have some stats here about DPA, and I think all right. Well, both teams. Let's start with the support. Both teams have been running mostly Arbiter. I think Arbiter is favored in kind of a long game kind of comp, and both of these teams are, they're solid teams that are going to take the game to the late game. Likely going to be able to support that kill mech. Oh, it looks like ECL is ready here. Then I think a BC is pretty standard. I think both teams are going to have a BC. So from that point of view, I think there's no surprise. I think what probably will really differ is the side lane kill mech. One side lane is probably expected to be a destroyer on both ends, but then the other one is really what's going to vary. Is it going to be a carrier? Is it going to be a guard? Is it going to be a void ray? Sometimes it might be an OV. I think we know who the stronger players are going to be here based on the amount of kills that they got previous games and based on the amount of side lane ships that they've been playing. So, but anyway, I won't take up all the time. So, anybody else have any input into this?
No, I'd love to hear your thoughts all day, Abra. Um, no,
Well,
what do you think are the side lane ships here, right? I mean, do you think who do you think will be the side lane ships? I guess would be the one question, especially for ECL.
well, there's I guess a little bit of a conflict of interest because given that we likely will be playing the winner of either one of these two teams, I may be divulging certain certain intelligence or certain preferences that I may have. Or in beliefs, and if I say this and people watch the cast or the replay, they may change it up just to mess with me. So I'm gonna try to reserve that as a surprise for both myself and the opponent team and the spectators.
Fair enough. Well, for Nexus, if you were going up against these teams, who would you expect to see on the sideline?
Well, for my analysis, I would predict Shapig will be on the outside playing Levy, and as far as a carrier player, I think maybe Q on the outside. And assuming Luigi's captaining would have to be playing somewhere in the middle. I'm not too familiar with ECL, not as familiar as Ambra, but just based on my observation, Q and Shapig will be on the outside.
Yeah, each one of them plays a couple of ships well and regularly. I would say not necessarily well. I'm sure everybody plays well at this level, but regularly, they're used to each other. They're used to playing those certain ships, and I think what they're going to run, the carrier can be run by two of them. The support can be run by two of them depending on what it's going to be, but likely it's going to be an ARB, as I mentioned. And I think the most versatile ship, kind of the person that fills in the other ship that's necessary in the comp, is Luigi. So he's likely gonna be the one that you're gonna see on a variety of ships throughout the 3 games.
Assuming it does go to 3 games. I know that in IH matches, I've seen Luigi run, a side lane Dreadnought, but I've also, and I feel like he is most known for his Guardian play, if I remember back to older tournaments. So, that is a 2 different roles of ships, and we do have DPA and we do have the countdown.
So here we go, kicking off game 1 of the match in the semifinals between DPA and Eclipsis.
Oh yeah. Are you guys as excited as I am?
Yeah,
I'm
who's
excited.
thirsty?
I'm thirsty.
Whoa!
Thirsty for blood. We want to see back and forth. What are your predictions? I don't think we went there. Do we have time during this one short load screen?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking this. Well, in terms of the last tournament, DPA is composed of a lot of really the winners of the last tournament. So, although it's it's been reformed quite heavily and they have some newer players, I think that they certainly have what it takes to go to the end of a tournament. But
We'll see a 50-minute
Eclipsis.
game here.
But Eclipsis, was Eclipsis in the last tournament though?
Yeah, I don't know that Eclipsis was in the last tournament, and certainly Eclipsis has gone the way in a number of older tournaments. So, really, I think it should be a very good matchup.
I think we'll see a 50-minute game here, maybe 60 minutes Eclipsis victory.
All right, so in the bottom left, we have War Alistair on Carrier. Opening Barrage, possibly going to be a mid-lane Carrier. Luigi looks like he's going up the side lane with Range Broods. QQQ going up the mid as an Overlord with Plague. Eddie going Range Missile in the mid as a PC. Shotpig going Feedback as a mid Arbiter. And Baggy Ice going side lane Dreadnought with Charges.
And in the top corner, from top to bottom, Singularity on the Destro, Lucky Devil on the Destroyer, Laptop Panda on the Colo, Ghost on the BC, Alpha on the Raven, and Nox on the Carrier. And this is exactly what we would like to see, a Carrier versus Carrier. May the best Carrier win. It's also worth noting that there are 3 tanks on the top comp.
Yeah, so 3 tank comp versus a 2 tank comp? Oh wait, no, that's not right. I'm sorry, it's a 3 tank comp versus a 1 tank comp. Very different late game strategies here, very different Carrier opens. Overall, this is some of the most different compositions we have seen in a matchup so far this tournament.
I just want to point out that War Alistair Open Barrage. That's definitely something new that I'm seeing with the carriers.
Yeah, he's been doing this a bunch of times this tournament, opening Barrage in the mid lane to give a little bit of extra push. Of course, I think in the other games they've played, they've had a tank in the mid, and in this game they don't have a tank in the mid, so it'll be interesting to see how well they're able to push in the early game.
Just by looking at this, I'm hoping they would put a tank in there in the middle to follow up with the Barrage, but
They've only got only one tank.
Considering the difference in tanks here, it's almost surprising that DPA hasn't pushed even further than they have. Of course, the side lane is sort of susceptible with the Guardian going up against the Guard, but you'd think that the mid would push very hard in this situation.
It seems like they've been a little bit reluctant to push too far. They were happy to take the Cloud and hold it.
Yeah, I think everybody, just I guess from last night's experience, it's such a high-profile game that you can't afford to make mistakes, and you really don't want to play it too pushy or too close, because you make one false move and you're likely to lose the game. And so everybody's playing, as carefully as possible.
I do think it's interesting seeing the Dread with Charges versus the Dread versus Hull matchup again. So in this early encounter, Singularity with Hull is actually lower than Baggy Ice, and Baggy Ice now does also have the capacity to cut in and drop charges on ships in the middle. Looks like there's actually a push going on against Lucky Devil here. Lucky Devil now at 5,000, 4,000, holding at 4,000.
Yeah, he overextended a little
like
bit.
He's going to get out okay.
A lot of damage.
And that's really the difference, is that you'd think that the Hull should be able to win against charges in the opening. but a lot of the times, if you land the charges that you get off, you can actually win against the Hull Dread, and then as the side lane D, you can threaten to cut in and drop charges in the mid. So, what is really the optimal, what is the best Dreadnought opening has been an interesting question in terms of how different teams have answered that question.
Well, off of that push right there, DPA has had to go back and heal up. Eclipsis wins the push, gets a bunch of farm, and they're retreating now back to the mid cloud. They might go all the way back to base.
It's interesting how quickly they're retreating, though. They did not wait at all to see any of the ships come out. Just in the possibility of a warp trick. So before they have radar, they're not, not radar, scan. They're not taking any chances.
Absolutely not. So we do have Nox coming out with 13 ints and Plasma Surge, Lucky Devil, Bots 221, Laptop Panda 44, and I'll check in a second whether he has constant regen. Alpha with still the non-upgraded imp, but 400 energy, and then Singularity with charges, protective field, and bots with 325 energy, Ghost with scan.
Nox is going to be a bit of a concern here for Eclipsis. He's gotten a lot more farm than War Alistair on the carriers, and his interceptors are going to be doing a lot of damage.
And you kind of can expect that usually, right, when a side lane carrier that opens 5 vents versus an inside carrier that opens barrage, you're starting kind of behind, and it's really hard to come out ahead.
Yeah, and Eclipsis is going to have to devote a lot of attention to that and a lot of resources into countering the ints, because War Alistair is going to take some time. Maybe he won't even be able to catch up at this point.
So, yeah, 3 interesting upgrade choices. QQQ getting Contaminate clearly to deal with the carrier. Shawpig with Storm, 500 energy. And Luigi with Corrosive Acid, all by the 7-minute mark.
This is true. Unconventional upgrades.
Well, Corrosive isn't that unconventional, but I think some teams tend to favor the Scourges at this stage of the game. The Storm is a little bit more distinctive, but in terms of dealing with carrier and pushing against 3 tanks in mid, it seems like a pretty reasonable upgrade path to me.
It's just you don't generally see it so early and with such little energy. Especially given the low utility, long cooldown on Contaminate. It's very hard.
Eclipsis is really struggling to push out here, and this is one of the challenges with dealing with a 3-tank composition, is that there's so much regeneration from DPA here that just really pushing out with them and having enough HP to really retake the cloud can be quite challenging. Let's go ahead and check now whether Laptop Panda did pick up his constant regeneration, and he does have Quantum Reactor.
And that's a good observation, actually, that they all do have bots, so they are regenerating on the field. The Colossus, his shields are going up, even as he's being shot. So he has Quantum Reactor. It's tough, and I think with 1 tank and also taking turns upgrading, ECL was trying to be sneaky and warp with base first and have some upgrade first and not others upgrade last. But if they catch you doing that, then you're not all coming out as a team. You're going to end up getting bottled in.
Yeah, and they put QQQ down on the bottom lane to get farm dubs, and also with Contaminate to counter Nox's interceptors. And really what happened was he was unable to put any plagues on the middle ships, and the middle ships for DPA just didn't really get damaged at all. They're still very healthy.
Yeah, although actually the score has it's not as far as it was. It's drifting toward 300 to 400. Actually, right now we have a push on Singularity with the Corrosive Acid.
Oh, the Raven stalled Alpha.
The Raven stalled Alpha.
He is going to be in trouble.
Is at 4,000 life, 3,000 life, 2,900, 2,000 life, 1,500,
Good
1,000
by the 2 dreadnoughts.
500,
but now Beggy Ice is a little
200,
into
and Alpha has gone down.
competition.
The DPA Raven has gone down. Will Beggy Ice make it out? Will this be a clean kill, or will they lose their Dreadnought? Beggy Ice, E-shields pop. He is still taking damage. 500 shields. Beggy Ice goes down.
And another destroyer goes down.
Singularity dies.
Oh, wow.
Eddie at 2,000 life. Laptop Panda No shields left. 5,000 life. Ghost, 4,000 life. Barrage on Laptop Panda. Laptop Panda takes a storm. 200 life. Laptop Panda goes down.
And I think
Ghost
they're giving up this game.
gives up. And that looks like it's going to be the end of game 1 of Eclipsis and DPA.
What a fast game. What a big turnaround, too.
Very
That was
distinctive turnaround.
Yeah, they were able to do a lot of damage very quickly. And DPA
Wow.
didn't really seem to be expecting that at all.
I'm speechless, guys. I think the stall on the Raven really kind of caused the whole team to fall behind and have to sacrifice. So Alpha with the GG here. Well, I guess we'll see what happens in the second round. It wasn't as much of a late game as we would have expected.
I think both teams were anticipating and prepared for a late game, but really in terms of the opening builds, we saw a lot of damage potential from ships that we don't normally associate with damage potential. The Carrier with the Barrage, the Arbiter with Storm, really. We want to be able to make a kill in the first 20 minutes while we're still playing toward the late game. I think that's what we see from ECL here. And they made it work against a 3-tank composition. And now we will be continuing on. Hopefully we will not spend too long in the next lobby, but I'm going to leave the stream up and allow our commentary to continue.
So ECL takes the first game. They're up 1-0 over DPA.
So do you think that DPA is going... I mean, is this a situation where... does DPA respond to this as Red Alert would? Say, okay, the Raven stalled. Our comp was basically right. We were in a fine position until this mistake occurred. Do we keep this the same or a similar composition and just try to play better this game? Or do we react heavily to this loss and change our composition?
Well, Crazy, I thought you were going to say, do we just get a Void Ray and finish the problem? That's what Red Alert would do, I know that.
Yes, Red Alert would run the Void Ray no matter what. But that's when you have a Void Ray specialist, right? I mean, you play to the strengths of your team.
Absolutely.
Looks like we are getting the lobby up from Eclipsis.
And Crazy, last night we were talking about
Wait a minute. This doesn't
how
look right.
Crazy, are
it's
you
the
gonna?
right.
I thought I was
you gonna-
joining on an Eclipsis person, but I think Shopig might have joined the wrong lobby.
Crazy, are you gonna cut the stream so that you can have a second part to the games can be separated?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the stream going so that there is the one continuous broadcast, and then I'm going to create highlights of each of the game from the stream so that there will be 2 or 3, depending on the number of games, separate videos as well.
Oh, okay. So it looks like the second lobby is not up yet.
Yes, do not fall into the trap of Shopig. He is on Eclipsis, and he's in a party with Baggy Ice, Luigi, and QQQ, which is why I'm so confused right now.
Actually, he got invited to the pub as much as I did. We all fell into that trap.
And QQQ is still in that last game.
So just a retrospective kind of look at that Barrage Open. I think it's very effective. I think it showed especially, that it's going to work in those kinds of push and shove engagements where you really are out DPSing any kind of regular damage that you would do. So it helps make up for the general weakness of the carrier in the beginning of the game. You're turning kind of a weakness into a strength, and then you still have the late game of the carrier.
Absolutely.
Another point to note there was that the DPA team was struggling a little bit with energy denial. There were 3 energy ships on the bottom team. There was an OV, there was a mining destro, there was a barraging carrier, and they had a denial. So actually, I should say 4 energy ships. While Alpha, which was the Raven, was a little bit overwhelmed. He was the only one that could actually shoot the EMPs.
Absolutely, and at that point you have to choose, what do I imp? Do I imp the Dread to deny the charges and let us win the side lane? But in doing
Yep.
so, do I create a risk or an opportunity or opening in the mid with this carrier who unexpectedly has barrage?
Yeah, exactly.
So Abra has stepped out. Do you guys are you? That was a short game, so I'm assuming you both are ready to continue on. I know we had several other people who would also like to cast.
User
If any of you
joined
wanted
your
to take a
channel.
break,
User left your channel.
Corny, are you still here?
I'm still here.
If you are DPA in this situation, do you change your camp or do you just play differently?
User joined your
I
channel.
would definitely change my comp
I missed it.
based
How did
on
they kill him so fast?
my analysis. Yeah, you know, they're a clan who likes to go carrier, guardian, arb. I really would stick a void ray in there and do what Telos did to Red Alert. But that's my take on it. We all know that in the long game ECL, they're really experienced in that field, and you don't want to go late game against them.
So, do we have a lobby yet?
I still don't see a lobby. I still think QQQ is he still in that last game? Yeah, they haven't even all
Can I
left that
join
game
this
yet.
lobby?
That was such a short game that we might just keep the same group of casters. Unless anyone in particular wants to break.
I was getting a drink. How did they kill them that fast?
Oh,
I
the
believe
barrage and the storm.
It was the Raven that stalled. So it was a human error that caused DPA that game.
Who was the Raven?
I believe it was Alpha. Stalled. I think
Oh,
they
I
would've
just
made
saw
it
that
out just
Laptop
fine.
Panda died, and then I saw that a whole bunch of people died.
Yeah.
But of course, I would see Laptop die first.
Crazy, are we still casting?
We are.
Jack, could we ask you to go, please?
Yep.
User left your channel.
So, do you think that either ECL or do you think ECL changes their comp?
I think I'm going back to what I said against that Red Alert match. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think they know that comp from from head to toe, and they will be continuing, in my opinion, using that composition.
All right, so we do have QQQ now finally out of the that game. I'm assuming Shaw Pig managed to get out of that lobby he was getting invited to, so hopefully now ECL is ready to get in the next lobby.
What do you think they'll be doing, Crazy? DPA?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question because there was, when it is human error, what do you do? Do you, how heavily do you react to the composition? Because you still need to play to your team's strength. So if your team
Right.
plays well with 3 tanks, maybe you
Right.
stick with that.
That's true. That's one thing I might have didn't factor in. Was in fact the human error that cost him that game.
It was a bit of a surprise too. Alpha is usually a pretty consistent player. I haven't seen him make derpy moves that frequently. So to go with the same comp wouldn't be a bad call. At that point in the game, they were doing a good job of controlling the map and pushing ECL back.
So Luigi has now set up the lobby. So there's multiple questions here, right? Because the comps were very, very different.
Yeah, if I was ECL here, I might field another heavier ship. They were a little light.
So with the Guardian, I mean, certainly one question would be, if you're gonna switch a tank, maybe you'd still run 3 tanks. Would you switch the Colossus for something like a Leviathan, something that would give you a little bit more of a burst dive capacity? Especially considering that as the game goes on, if ECL is building around this late game, I mean, they got the early win that game, but really the composition is designed for the late game, and their open is to stabilize the board so that they can get to the late game. Then, really, I think that the first thing I would think of would be wondering, do we cut the Colossus, replace it with something else like a Leviathan, so that we're not putting ourselves at risk, especially against the Broodlords as the game goes on.
I'm not. I'm gonna take a stab at that and say I'm not too sure on the Levy as a tank against the Broodlords any better than the Colo, but maybe it is in a way, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, for me the L isn't exactly a better tank against the Broodlords, but it creates dive potential, right? So it's kind of like a mix between a Void Ray and a tank. That's kind of the Leviathan. That's why it struggles in a lot of games, because it requires so much farm and it lacks the burst damage of charges in the beginning, and it lacks the tankiness of the Dread going whole in the beginning. But it can intercept, it can get on enemy ships, allowing warp tricks, allowing other ships to dive in, and it is resistant to blackouts while also being able to do in the late game a lot of damage. It seems like we've lost Nexus for the moment.
I think you certainly can turn it into a kill ship. Probably a little bit better, but I think it requires a lot more attention and pampering and babysitting on the side lane than a destroyer may.
Nexus has come back.
Or Dreadnought, I should say.
So, I mean, in terms of another thing to consider would be, okay, do we replace maybe a Colossus with an Overlord, right? I mean, it's the third tank is replacing the Overlord if we consider, the contrast to many other compositions running the Bork mid, right? They have Arbiter rather than Raven. Wait, were they? No, they were running Raven last game. So they had the Battlecruiser, they had the Colossus.
DPA was running the Raven while the ECL was running the Arbiter, so DPA, to my surprise, was running Raven there.
Yeah, DPA was running everything in a Bork mid except for the O. Instead of the O, they put in a D. So do you cut either the K or the D in the mid and replace it with an Overlord, giving them Plague, giving them Spotter, Siphon, and Psyblast, more ways to pick off a guard. Also the Sonic Shockwave, which, if you really need to, can clean up Broodlords or push your team into the enemy team to get a dive.
Yeah, I have. That's always an interesting move. I have yet to see it, though. It's so hard to, I think, coordinate. That I think in this tournament I haven't seen it yet. The Sonic Shockwave push.
It's certainly something you need to practice. I know we tried it in-house, and I was being totally unfamiliar with the tactic, was not in the right position for it. So I know I've seen it in unsuccessfully done before.
Yep. I kind of wanted to go back. Oh, there's a lobby. All right. Yeah, I wanted to go back on that, and I think we maybe were a little bit unfair to say that Alpha was, necessarily the reason for that, that engagement and ultimately that fate. the DPA team, but I think initially it was the destroyer that was in trouble, causing Alpha to come back, get out of position, have to force an EMP on the other dread to not mine the destroyer to death, and I'm not sure which one of the two destroyers, but I believe it was Singularity. At which point he accidentally right-clicked, I think, on his own destroyer and caused them to stall. But I don't, I think Alpha was forced into that position, and as I mentioned before, I think he was also kind of under a lot of the stress of the other energy ships that he needed to run back and forth to deny.
Absolutely. And also without any sort of missile boat or any sort of continuous damage. They had the BC for missiles, actually. They had the 5 missiles on the BC, but they didn't have a frigate or an overlord, something that would have sustained damage in the mid for either plagues or additional rockets. Some teams would switch out the overlord for a frigate, something to give kiting. So without that in the mid, it does always create the risk that if the enemy team gets on you, right, you don't have any way to force them back with damage, or at least not nearly as easily. So...
Fair, right? Yep.
And it's not like the carrier is going to help with that at all, especially with just interceptors. So then you would really be reliant on, who's going to cut in. It would have to be the side lane D, who might not be able to get there in time before something dies. The more I think about it, the more I would think DPA has to be strongly considering changing their composition, particularly the mid. Not necessarily the side lanes. Maybe they still keep the carrier on the side, keep the D on the other side, but do something in the mid to mix that up.
Who was the Colossus last game? You guys remember on DPA?
From DPA.
I can't say I do. Was it? I think Lucky Devil might have been the Colossus, and I think Singularity was the Destroyer. The other, who was it? Laptop Panda was the BC. LSD might have been the other Destroyer.
Was LSD in the last game?
Or no, maybe not.
I feel like there's a chance, if they're bringing LSD, it could be that DPA is going to significantly change their comp. I know that LSD has run Void Ray in the past, so there's a chance that they're going to really mix up the side lanes, which would also perhaps shake up the mid, right? If they run LSD on Void Ray, have more of a hard counter to the carrier, then build the rest of the composition around creating opportunities for the Void Ray. If you're looking and thinking, okay, ECL just won that last game, they won it with this mid lane carrier with barrage as one of the main reasons they got as strong of a push there as they did. Do we run a Void Ray in the side so that as the game goes on, if we avoid any big mistakes like what happened last game, that we can shut down the carrier without really having our own carrier trying to get into an interceptor war through the entire game, and have the Void Ray get a kill? I know that Pornexus, you were saying that maybe they need a Void Ray in this situation against ECL's composition.
Well, and that goes back, I guess, to what you were saying is if it ain't broke, are we fixing it? And don't fix it. So, if ECL's been running the same comp, is it likely that they're going to run the same comp, and then maybe a Void Ray might do the trick? But even then, it's risky.
Well, I think that if you have a Void Ray in the side, you do need something more than the Raven in terms of denial in the mid, right? They had the Raven and the BC last time, so they actually did have 2 forms of denial in the mid, but the BC, I'm not... Did the BC have lockdown by the time that finishing push happened?
No, I do not.
I think it was still on missiles, wasn't it?
I think he had scan only, from what I remember.
I think you're right. I remember that. He did pick up scan. He had opened 5 missiles. He got scan on the first back, and then he died before the second back really was complete.
Yeah, I think if you had lockdown, maybe the barrages wouldn't have gone the same way.
So there's a chance that they. Well, I mean, yeah. He's going to be focusing on it. He might be focusing on an early lockdown. So the BC might change its play a little bit in the mid. They'll probably still keep the B. Probably still keep the R. I mean, I don't think that they changed the Raven just because he was the first to die last game. Although you did say that they also run Arbiter sometimes. Do they switch the Raven for an Arbiter?
I think it depends. I think if there's a chance of them running a Void Ray, the Arbiter might not be as useful paired up with the Void Ray. Generally, you run the Raven for a few different reasons that I won't necessarily get into, but
well, I mean, the blackout creates an opportunity for Void Rays, right? That the idea is you black out the enemy team, Void Ray dives in, and that's how you generate kills. ECL is now saying ready.
So the blackout amongst other things, but I think even the DMAT and even the radar, a lot of different points that favor the Raven with the Void Ray. So if they are going to run indeed a Void Ray, I don't see them swapping over to an Arbiter.
About Akano, if you're a sideline Void Ray, what do you want in the mid to support you? Did Helveticus just... is he gone now?
Ooh, ask me.
Ooh, Pernexus, if you're a side lane Void Ray, what do you want in the mid to support you?
Pernexus, if you were to play a Void Ray.
I know that, Pernexus, you would never run Void Ray, but,
I would never run Void Ray.
But if you were to, what would you say?
Definitely a Raven.
Is that really the main consideration, and then BC is kind of optional? I sometimes I feel like BC with the lockdown can almost be just as impactful as the... Well, certainly not as impactful as a blackout, but sometimes more impactful than an imp.
User left your channel.
Well, I think really the Raven complements the Void Ray, as you all saw, and one can't live without the other. It's like you gotta have a Raven and a Void Ray. You can't have a Void Ray without a Raven.
What?
Period.
You can't have a Void Ray
without a Raven.
Oh, right.
But Akano, you've come back. What?
Yes. Why is that? Why is it? Why can we not have a Void Ray and an Arbiter?
Well, with the blackout, right? And you black out the metal ships in the middle, and the Void Ray will come in and just melt them. It's really simple.
But is there anything else you want in the mid, Helveticus, now that you're back, other than the Raven in the mid if you're a Void Ray? Is it important to have the Overlord for plagues so that the enemy is a little bit softened up? Is it important to have a battle cruiser so that you can get the lockdown? Do you want Guardian so that you can get Parasite? What complements the Void Ray best in terms of mid composition?
I think all the ships have certain strengths that pair well with each other.
I think they would need to have more tanks, maybe a triple tank, replace an OV. I really would like to see, if they like tanks, I would put 3 tanks back in there, replace their carrier. Did the DPA have a carrier, or was it a carrier?
Yeah, both teams had carriers, so I think that if you're going to switch something out, the carrier for the Void Ray,
exactly.
You don't run both carrier and Void Ray unless... I can't think of a situation where I would run both unless maybe Eclipsis would. I mean, if you have the mid lane carrier going barrage in the beginning, maybe you can get away with a carrier and a Void Ray. I don't know, but most of the time, I think the conventional wisdom is that you only want really one early game passive ship. In my mind, the Void Ray is an early game passive ship, and the carrier is an early game passive ship. Because if you can't get to the late game, it doesn't matter how strong your late game composition is.
I would say more important than the Raven Arb question or Raven Arb Overlord, more important than the support question in a Void Ray composition is having a very strong mid composition that can effectively push the other team. Because if the Void Ray is not able to be at least at mid map, I mean, then he has to go and back farm. That's a whole nother strategy. If you can get your mid to just push to mid and hold mid or push and win mid, push further than mid, then the Void Ray makes everything much easier for the Void Ray.
Absolutely. So how
That
do...
I would have to agree with, coming from a Void Ray player. Because if the middle collapses, then the Void Ray would be, in my situation, I would, as you all have seen, I would go around the enemy and back farm, which is really not. We haven't really seen that in these tournaments or IH games a lot. But that would be
It's not
my
an
take on
ideal
it.
situation. I mean, it's a
User
strategy
joined
that
your
you have to
channel.
take
I'm
if your
back.
team's unable to push out a base, but it's far from ideal.
So it looks like this game they're going to bench Alpha, or maybe Alpha as a captain is going to bench himself.
Wow. Too soon. Too soon.
Well, I mean, that can happen. I mean, Hawk in Red Alert regularly does not play in some of the tournament matches, even though he is nominally the captain. I know that many of us feel that Yvonne functionally is usually the captain, or at least the shot caller. You know, I know in some teams they differentiate the role between, you know, who picks the composition, but who calls the shots in game.
Yeah, and who is actually the clan leader?
Right, so I know that when they're registering the teams, Hawk is the one who registered the team and put it together. So it could be that Alpha feels, you know, if you know, we're putting in LSD, we're mixing up our composition and our players, maybe my best ship isn't going to work in this composition that I think is the best composition, so I'm going to bench myself. And it, you know, you can always think, okay, is it that he's tilting and he feels bad about the way the last game went, or is it that he just thinks that based on the strategy for this next game, someone else should be in there? And it's also possible that if they have 7 or 8 or 9 people registered, that sometimes your alternate
Everybody
player
should get a
can play a
fair
Raven,
chance.
and I play Raven, so okay, he's going to get a turn in this tournament. You know, I'm not going to, you know, have someone not able to play in the semifinals just because I'm the captain, right?
Yeah, everybody should get a fair chance for sure.
So it absolutely is not necessarily just because he was the first to die last time. There's many different reasons that someone can choose to pinch themselves.
And we have
of course,
LSD here. LSD played Battlecruiser, Dreadnought, and Overlord, so he's not necessarily a support player. Alpha played Arbiter and Raven before, and Frigate. Mostly
Yeah.
Arbiter and Raven. This changes the way that DPA will be able to field ships here.
Well, from what I've seen, LSD would be playing Void Ray, if any.
He did play Void Ray so far in the tournament only one time.
I know that I said LSD would be a possible Void Ray mainly because it seemed like Void Ray might make sense in that composition. I know that LSD can certainly play other ships. Why did I get moved up to ECL?
Helveticus
You
is
know-
going to be playing into Team 2. Oh, no.
Oh shit, I better get ready. What is
Crazy.
this?
It's a 7v5.
Lucky Devil is now in a spectator slot, and I am on Team 1. I don't know what's going on.
Are you ready? Crazy, you better get ready.
Yeah, I better get up to that channel.
No, actually, you know, though I wasn't, I was actually a little bit sarcastic there about Alpha. I actually think that he's very busy. I know he barely had time to get on these last few days, and he was also the last one to come online. As you know, it was. I think everybody was kind of waiting on him to start the game. So you know, I think he probably has other stuff to run to. It's not necessarily that he is blaming himself for that last loss, but I think it's just mainly that, as you said, you know, he feels like.
Oh, and there's other
There could be
technical
other players
possibilities
that-
as well. I know he just relogged on
contributions.
TeamSpeak, so it could be that he needed to change, you know, cycle his router or some other thing.
And you know, it's interesting so far this tournament, we have not seen Shopig on Levy, and he's not even in this game now. They put Silver in.
Excellent observation. So both teams are mixing up their players, which means there could very easily be a mix-up of composition, although Alpha is not getting back in this game because Nox is now saying that DPA is ready.
So both teams are ready. It's worth noting that they have set the map to deep space. Last map was not deep space, but both games the map has been selected by the teams. They did not leave it to a random map. And
As Mario would say, here we go.
Excellent. Yeah, so this is now game 2 of DPA Deadpool Alliance versus ECL Eclipsis. I'm joined in the casting booth by Abra,
hello.
Helveticano,
Hola.
and Poor Nexus. So,
Hey, Pornexus, are you sure it wasn't Luigi who said that?
I have to double check.
Get what I did there?
alright, so we had a 12-minute game 1, which ultimately went to Eclipsis, and we have had personnel changes from both teams. DPA has taken out Alpha, who is their registered captain, and put in LSD, and Shopig was taken out for Silver. In the bottom left, we have Nox as an Overlord going Plague, Laptop Panda going 4-3 Colossus, Lucky Devil as a second Overlord going Plague, Singularity going side lane Dreadnought with Hull, and Ghost going Imp, and finally, coming out a little bit slow, LSD, not on a Void Ray, on the Battle Cruiser going range missiles. Aber, would you like to call the top ships again?
Yes, so ECL, Luigi on the guard, so he has maintained ship. QQQ on the OV with Plague, Silver with range open on a BC, War Alistair with range open on the frigate, Eddie with range open on the BC, so this is a very heavily kiting comp, all missiles, and finally Baggy Ice on the side lane with charges.
So both teams going radically different compositions for game 2.
Well, I think with the double OV, just based on the composition alone, I'm gonna favor DPA on this one.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a better late game composition here. When those OVs get farmed up, they'll be pretty deadly.
Well,
Although
Experience.
we absolutely do have to get to the late game, though, and
You
the
have to.
threat of a kiting composition is that if ECL gets, just one good push, they can take out 1 or even 2 ships, because even an early game PDD might not necessarily be enough to break up the continuous damage from ECL's composition.
And notice the continuous damage. They are closing them in, even though they have all kite open. They are all focusing missiles on the Colo. They're all pushing together. They are not letting it go. They're not missing a single volley here. They are forcing the DPA back in.
And don't fail to miss the coordinated launches as well, making sure that every weapon available to ECL's composition, including onboard fighters, are being used to focus down the Colossus shields, not letting any damage go to waste. So ECL has won this initial push at the 3-minute mark. That's a very fast push for a very early game aggressive composition.
Yeah.
DPA.
Yes, Crazy, I'd like to point out that ECL does not have a support ship.
No, only the Overlord could act as a support, and the 2 PCs, of course, but they really can't deny half of, well, 2/3 of DPA's composition.
And those happen to also be the deniers, so they can't deny the deniers. That means that the 2 overlords are actually going to have relatively free reign on energy should this game go longer. It also seems like at one point, and when they were right in front of the towers, they ECL had 4 of their ships plagued at the same time. That caused them to not be able to contain probably as much as they would like to. This is going to be interesting, and I think everybody, including our viewers, would want to see this go to game 3. Maybe not ECL, but at least for entertainment purposes, we would. At least I do.
Absolutely. Now, you have to wonder, is it possible that ECL looked at DPA's player changes and thought they were going to run a Void Ray? Because it seems like if they thought there was going to be a void raid, yeah, maybe you'd run 2 battle cruisers, but I would think you would also still want to run a Raven, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably. But I think perhaps the thought process might be a different one, to say that if there is a void raid, there's going to be weakness in the comp, and we're going to be able to contain it hard with these strong missile boats. We're going to keep pushing damage and take the initial farm lead, which, by the way, they still kind of maintain. Right now, ECL still has a 100 farm lead, 130 farm lead ahead. So maybe that was what they were thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And although it's not a big farm lead, it does result in very important changes at this 5-minute mark. You know, just for example, on the side lane, we have Baggy Ice with charges, hull, and bots versus Singularity, who contained a little bit earlier, only has charges without the bots. It means he can't stay out here as casually so long.
From ECL's comp, it would seem that they expected DPA to retain a tanky composition, which they did not. They've got the missile boats in the middle with 2 BCs to presumably counter a Colossus and Dreadnoughts.
This is potentially true as well. I think also, someone said it not too long ago that actually someone from DPA said that ECL has a tendency of surprising people with their comps in the semifinals and the final games. So they'll run stuff that you haven't really seen from them before. They tend to be unpredictable like that, and I think this is certainly qualifying as one of those. I mean, I don't think we've seen a comp maybe once in the tournament with no supports.
Yeah, and at the same time, we haven't seen a double overlord comp from DPA. So I think both teams were kind of shifting drastically their strategies.
Yeah, it's, I mean, we do have Luigi on Guardian, right? I mean, some of these players are on their comfort zone ships. It's not that every player is on a radically different ship than what they're used to playing, but the overall composition and direction of the team is just noticeably different. I mean, considering how passive their comp seemed to be last time, right, with the carrier and the arbiter in the mid, which very susceptible to deny, no kiting ability or obvious pushing power. Here, forget PCBC, this is a very strong mid, very aggressive mid, so it's basically a completely different playstyle even from them.
So I would want to point out that Baggy Ice has warped back to base sooner than expected and set up the warp trick on the right side. He has just been scanned right now. He was not in sight of the Raven previously, but the scan has caught him. And this will actually cause DPA to fall further behind on their farm because they're not able to push past the map, not knowing what will happen from the right-hand side.
Absolutely, that's even though a warp trick may seem to be unsuccessful if it doesn't generate a kill, oftentimes the on-time warp trick in the early game simply allows a farm lead to expand, and they still might actually get a little bit of damage on Nox here. I would be surprised if this ended up being a kill, but still forcing him to go back, preventing him from farming the side lane very easily.
Oh, beautiful plague by Nox there. I think he hit all 3 ships, and the Destro was already plagued, but got plagued again. Now we're starting to see the farm denial, and we saw a couple of siphons fly back and forth. Both OVs have siphon on DPA. The OV on the ECL team also has siphons, so there's going to be a lot of energy denial. We see the lockdowns flying. And we see that all ships have just swapped to energy, so I think the intent here was to try to force missiles, try to force a counter on the missiles, and then see all the BTs swap to energy. You'll see the frigate that got Ion early, and the guard that is going energy as well. Although I'm not sure that he's using the energy for anything at this point, other than to heal himself.
A little bit of a push in mid now. ECL has to be careful here with the plagues. Many of their ships are low, and it seems like they do not yet have that constant battle cruiser regeneration. At least not on both ships. Silver does. Eddie does not.
And the plagues are sinking in.
Eddie probably had to spend much more of his minerals to make sure he had enough energy for lockdown, so he did not have the minerals when he went back to pick up regeneration, even though he knew he was going to be eating at least a few plagues.
I think Laptop Panda as a Colo and a tank in the middle, I think he's avoiding to take any damage. He hasn't taken any missile, and he's not really pushing in there either. I think maybe he's afraid of getting locked down. Maybe what he should do is lock. Oh, he was waiting for the siege creep, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's also notable that he did not pick up Hardened Shield against 3 missile boats, instead going for the Thermal Lance and the capacity of burst damage over a slightly more consistent mitigation.
Oh, War Alistair with less than 1,000 health and 700 shields. He will be going home.
User joined your channel.
So in this push, where we saw ECL warp in from the right side of the map and try to prevent DPA from farming, they really don't make it past half map. After all, DPA manages to hold the middle, and now they're up at the towers farming.
This is
boys?
Hi, Dratu. We're currently in the middle of the stream, if you don't mind leaving for the moment.
You in a game, in-house?
This is a tournament match, so...
Error. User was moved out of your channel.
Beggy Ice avoiding the charges up top. Still being used as a warp point. The frigate has afterburners, is able to catch up to anyone and ion cannon them. DPA is playing very carefully. I guess it is still a squishy comp, so those two overlords cannot afford to be caught off out of position. However, they will be launching plagues on the way back, and they are letting the plagues sink in, such that all the ships are nice and fresh when you come out.
You have to think that the longer this game goes, the harder it will become for Eclipsis. With the 2 battle cruisers, they do have QQQ, they do have Luigi, they do have a late game, but against 2 overlords, the risk of any ship getting caught out and focused down by Nox and Lucky Devil becomes increasingly dangerous.
Singularity puts his protective field up. He's pushing out to take out the Brood Lords and allow DPA some maneuvering room in the mid-map here.
Silver still no lockdown. He went defensive shield and scanner sweep, so all lockdowns are coming from Eddie, which effectively means that since QQQ does have Siphon, but he's generally up against the overlords, that most of the denial against the tanks is going to be on Eddie, which means every time he gets siphoned by Lucky Devil, that's a lot of breathing room for both Laptop Panda, who does now have Hardened Shield, and Singularity with Protective Field and Repair Bots.
So ECL has both OG Orange Shields on both these, turning them into something a little bit more tanky. Beggy Ice is locked down, and he is being missiled from behind, so he's going to be... Oh, he had to get a little bit of support on the top lane. Ghost is sitting on full energy, full shields, and full health. He has EMP and Defensive Matrix at this point. I think he's using it to defend the Overlords against the opponent's Side Blast on QQQ.
Even at 1300 damage, the Side Blast is still quite dangerous and very important for DPA's ability to push. If the Overlords get too low and if they have to go back into Plagues, then they effectively, the entire team is in a greater degree of risk.
There was a little bit of confusion here from ECL, where Alistair was setting up a warp trick at the bottom. However, Beggy Ice was in a better position to set the warp trick, and then Silver warped on yet another ship. And now War Alistair actually did a cross-field warp from the bottom to the top lane. And he is...
a little bit of a threat on LSD here, although Ghost
Fury's
manages
coming
to
up
get
on the
over.
left there.
Siege Creep also coming up along the top.
They take a pretty good position for DPA.
Overlord just warped in the middle of a battle. It may be a little bit dangerous. And Guard is Luigi's warping in as well. They're they're doing a great job scrambling the side lanes, so basically they are not very predictable as to where they're going to be. Frigate looks like it's bottom first, then it goes top, OV swaps over to the top, and Guard warped in top, but then goes bottom, or mid now I should say. Luigi is working into broods. He already has level 2 broods and has set 5 or 6 of them now.
With 675 energy, although the broods are only level 2, they just spam out so many broodlings that it's still very frustrating just in terms of number of shots to kill with them. And the entire team reacts to Singularity coming out, making sure that no one trying to set up a warp trick or come out unexpectedly is unpunished.
The one good counter to broods is the ship's onboard fighters. If you recall the semifinal game last night, Abra Aces High versus Red Alert, Amigo Deer had 11 fighters, 11 Noodlisks on his Overlord, around the 25-30 minute mark. And here for DPA, their mech ships, Laptop, Ellis, and Singularity have 0 fighters, 0 upgrades on their fighters. Lucky Devil only 2 on his Noodlisks. And Nox, who is not even close to the broods at all, the farthest away, has 8. He has the most, and putting them to least use. He's farming with them, of course, so he's putting them to use, but he's not really destroying those broods or helping with them.
Right, so even though the score is quite different, we have a 400 lead for ECL, which is a significant lead. It's still, as the game goes on, it might not be enough, right? I think you'd be hoping for a 500 or 600 lead at this point to be able to really have the speed upgrades to run down one of these squishy ships from DPA. Another threatened warp trick coming out from the side from Baggy Eyes.
How are we doing on speed here? Lucky
is...
Devil and Nox. Lucky Devil very slow. He's still 1.7.
Yeah, notice that Baggy Ice the Destroyer is 1.82 and Nox the OV is also 1.82, so this is actually quite dangerous here because the Destroyer can keep up with your support.
Yeah, he's keeping up with Nox and he's already behind Lucky. He's parallel to Lucky across the middle of the map there.
Yep.
If he cut in, he probably wouldn't be able to do much damage though, and he pulls back a little bit.
And so notice that these are decisions that are very dynamic. Everything's kind of made on the field. Every player is really well-rounded enough to be able to make on a whim decide whether they're going to warp or not. So Baggy was not actually, the whole team was not committed to that warp trick, but he was always offering it as an option. Anybody at any point can just decide to warp on him should it be needed. But in this case, they decided to just keep farming as that was not really a kill opportunity.
So, little changes that make a difference as well. QQQ does not have Plague Extension, whereas Lucky Devil does, and Nox also does. So, is it that QQQ didn't want to spend the minerals or energy on Plague Extension, or is it that looking at 2 enemy overlords, he wants to maintain the bonus damage to biological?
That is correct, and I think that's what it is. And he favors the Side Blast, of course, because the Side Blast is what's going to win in the push against the Overlords. Oh my god, Nox
on the right, taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, he did get the siphon off on QQQ, so continuous Side Blast was not available to finish him off, but still coming out, even just a few more Side Blasts, and yes, Nox is now burning. He will likely have to return to base and warp back in, although he's trying to get a little bit more farm now for the moment.
And ECL here all has warp. Every ship has warp, whereas DPA only Laptop has bought warp, sacrificing a lot of maneuverability and options for them.
They do want to keep those options open. It's also worth noting that I think almost every ship on the ECL side is at 1.8, the OV is at 1.9, and the only one that's a little bit slower is the Guard. So they are trying to maintain, the same speed to be able to kind of push together and run down the same at the same rate. However, if you notice, Lucky Devil, who's an Overlord, he's only at 1.7, and he's on the DPA side, and Laptop Panda is also only at 1.7. So this is kind of where you can tell that the farm lead is going to, make those little differences.
War Alistair now coming out on top. He does not have
Radar Jammer? No.
Radar Jammer, that's correct. But he still might be far enough away that there are OBFs coming up from Singularity and Laptop Panda to make sure they spot that warp trick coming in.
Well, he's got an edge over there.
Oh,
got an
look
edge
at that
on knock.
warp in. Look at that warp in. ECL has all warped. I think they were threatening to warp, you know, on Big Ice whenever they did, and now they finally made it happen on War Alistair. They all warped in at the same time.
And Lucky and Nox are both out of position. They're going to be in trouble here.
Yeah, they're certainly going to get some side blast on Lucky Devil, but Baggy Ice on the side is so low at this point that he has to be very careful. He can't push in very much further on Nox without jeopardizing his own safety.
Well,
These shields have now popped.
Laptop warps in.
These shields have already popped
And
on Baggy
Singularity
Ice.
is
He's at
cutting.
1500.
Silver is in trouble now.
Silver at 3000.
Ooh, Singularity should not have backed off there, maybe, or he was backing off
Wow.
on the lance. I think they could have pushed that all the way because there's no support ship. Remember, their ECL has no support ship to save them from this.
It was a very tense engagement that is not yet stabilized. LSD taking some damage. Broodlings are up. They are now level 11. War Alistair with rapid reload, level 10 rockets. Singularity down to 5,000 life and locked down. Both enemy battlecruisers, both Eddie and Silver, both have lockdown now. 425 energy and 450 energy.
Lucky
And
finally gets his
interestingly-
side blast up. He's got a 2600 side blast, so he dumped a lot into that. He'll come out and he might catch them off guard with this.
And
So interestingly enough, they were able to send Baggy Ice back home. The other one healed on the field, didn't really care. He regened all his life, and they were able to continue pushing even though they were in a very sticky situation.
in the pregame, I was brainstorming whether DPA might consider cutting the Colossus. As we can see, they did not. Laptop Panda is still the Colossus with the Thermal Lance and the Hardened Shield, but, you know, this is the situation that really creates the biggest challenge for the Colossus, wherein there are heavy Broodlords, which will very quickly break down the Hardened Shield, and burst damage ships and lockdown, so that other abilities are hard to maintain. Really, until Laptop gets invulnerability, which he can't afford yet, it will be hard for him to push as a tank against this enemy composition.
The side lane battle on the right between QQQ and Nox is interesting. QQQ at 900 farm, almost breaking 1,000 score, talking about score, and Nox just under 800, or sorry, just under 900. He's losing by a little bit. And it's also interesting that Lucky, who's now a mid overlord, he hasn't really switched out with Nox to farm up and take advantage of the fact that they do have two overlords, and that two overlords both at a decent strength is what they're counting on to win this game.
And especially to focus down on QQ because they are both on the side lane there, to really be able to cut on him and focus him. But I totally agree with that, and that's a very good point. How like this?
Yeah, and as far as the overlords go, Nox at 13 range, QQQ also at 13 range, Lucky also at 13 range, so they're all at equal range, all at a very high range. Typically, the overlords won't go higher than this until 40, maybe 50 minutes.
Interesting positioning from Baggy Ice here. The rest of his team has gone back, but he continues down the side. It seems as though, yeah, he has been scanned, so they know he is there. He, I have to think, knows he has been scanned by this point, considering the reaction of the team. But he's still going for it anyway, and it looks like this is going to be a very decisive warp trick right here.
Oh, QQQ is now up at 14 range.
They back off a little bit. They don't immediately commit until everyone is warped in.
They're waiting for everyone to warp in, and now everybody has warped in. I think they're going to be pushing. This is going to be interesting. It might not go as they expect. I would
Baggy Ice
expect
down to
to see
4,000. LSD taking damage. Broodlords are up. Silver, no shields. Eddie, no shields. Out of energy. Gaps are on him. Singularity has to back off.
LSD has stalled there.
Baggy
and
Ice down to
Singularity was
750. One
Lucky's
more
going for
side
another
blast,
shot.
and E-shields have popped. 2,000 shields now. They're forcing back Nox, not allowing to get that next side blast off, but Eddie is now in the back with 4,500. And both teams, for the moment, are clear of a very... Oh! War Alistair, not the best
But out of
turn.
position.
Boosts out,
Ooh.
down to 900, 800, 700, 600, and he is
And they
clear
let
of
him
just
go at
barely.
500.
Singularity now in damage. Baggy Ice's E-shield has already popped. He is siphoned. It's a very
And they
hot engagement.
disengage. Very heated engagement.
Beggy Ice is botting as he was siphoned. He was able to get it off the red, and maybe not off the burning yet, though. Well, what's interesting here, and I think what we've noticed, is that actually the ECL game was a very psychological game, and I think they're just messing with you by telling you that they're gonna warp. They're gonna warp. They always threaten that. They keep that ship on the side there to keep the possibility. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when push came to shove, and DPA was forced to engage the warp trick from the ECL side, they actually realized that even though they're a little bit behind on farm, they actually were able to take that engagement. And I feel like if they were to commit a little bit more, some of their ships, if they were to commit a little bit more, I think they would be able to hold and maybe even push ECL back and contain.
Absolutely. I mean, a big part of ECL's damage is on Luigi, and he has to have the time to set up those Broodlords before they spawn. There's a small window of opportunity for both of the DPA Overlords to do work.
Another interesting point here to note is that a lot of the farm, even though a lot of the DPS is on Luigi, a lot of the farm is on QQQ, and QQQ also has gone all the way up to 11 Mutalisks, I guess to allow the Mutalisks in his lane to dominate the Mutas from the other two Overlords.
Yeah, he's also keeping his mutas at one shot, makes farming easier, and he will continue to accumulate farm faster than Nox. At this rate, Nox's mutas are at 2 shots.
The entire team is warping back. Oh my god, poor Alistair gets
Poor
stuck
Alistair
here.
has to boost out. Eddie.
The others canceled the warp.
Eddie is okay. ECL does end up okay here, but that was a dangerous situation for Alistair.
If everybody had warped, he may have been caught a little bit out of position, but I guess he always had boosters to get out of it.
And after those last 2 attacks by ECL where they warped out to the sides to push DPA back, they pulled ahead a little bit on farm, and they're up by about 700 or 800 farm score overall. So they extended their lead.
Almost all of which is on QQQ with the 2,500 damage Cybox, actually almost 2,600, and 11 range on his Siphon Energy. Nox has 2,700 actually on his Psyblast, being underfarmed compared to QQQ. Also 11 range on Siphon Energy. So it...
Yeah. One can note that both Destros are taking a lot of damage from Psyblast at this point, and they're only about to get bigger.
Not a good game to beat a Destro.
Nope, certainly not. Especially not on the ECL side, because I think you're the main target for both the lockdown and the siphons.
Alright, so even with Hardened Shield up, or I'm sorry, even with Protective Field up, the Dreadnought at that point has 78 armor, but the Broodling strikes from the Broodlords at this point do 84, so the Dreadnought is going to start to have an even harder time dealing with the Guardian and the Broodlords as well. Yeah, there's definitely a choice not to get the Plague position on QQQ's part. He just wants that bonus damage on the biological. There's no way QQ would not have Plague Extinction if he wanted it with 1200 farm.
And it's important to note that he's been using it accordingly, right? He's only been launching it on the Overlords and possibly, I think, a few times on the Raven, but not much else. He hasn't really gone to the middle to Plague out of his way. I wonder if the Swarm Command, I think from the looks of it, the Swarm Command looks like a double Swarm Command.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a double Swarm Command.
Yeah.
Hey, yep.
Confirmed.
Swarm Commander, of course, always creates a little bit of risk, because not only is there the risk that the Corruptors will come out and prevent your team from getting farmed by killing the creeps first, but also just in terms of a system impact, because the Storm Command does tend to just drop frame rate by 10 or 20.
And then may the best computer win. Wait, did I just say that? Sorry.
This is a game of skill until someone crashes. Wow! Silver
Someone's
now down to
computer crashed.
2,600. He manages to get out, but little flight missteps here creates big windows of opportunities for these two enemy overlords. This is what ECL has to be very careful of when there is no support.
PPQ is always still dominating Nox. He's 300 farm
User
score
left
ahead,
your channel.
and he's he has Nox at a very low health point.
We have a warp in.
There.
Not exactly a trick, since I think DPA was well aware of it, but they're still going to get some side blasts on Singularity here.
I think, you know, part of the reason for the double swarm command is to be able to deal with those broodlords. It does help to clear it up a little bit faster. Both the corruptors and the mutalisks can target the broodlords, so they do a very good job of that. It's just, oh, there's going to be a focus on the bottom tower now. I think everybody is converging on it and everybody's starting to launch. Let's see how this is going to go.
It's worth noting that there's very little emphasis on ultimates from either team at this point. Laptop Panda does not have invulnerability. Ghost does not have blackout. There's really no fusion torpedoes or nukes. Really just both teams focusing on constant abuse, constant abilities able to be cast, even though pretty much every ship is over the 500 mark.
I think the overlords would want to come in there and siphon the BCs, you know, get rid of that energy, get rid of the lockdowns and the OJ shields and all that stuff, but I think given that it's such a range game at this point between, you know, the overlord launching his long range blast at 14 range, the broodlords shooting their stuff at 14 range, you know, it doesn't give the Ovies too much of an opportunity to go in there and get the siphon, and the siphon being only 11 range.
I mean, yeah, in terms of ultimates, obviously it's always fun to watch the torps, but with no carrier for Vortex and no Arbiter for Stasis, it can be hard to land them. What surprises me more is Laptop Panda not committing to invulnerability so that he can push into Broodlords easier. And to an extent, you know, I'm also wondering whether any of these Overlords are going to pick up Psionic Shockwave to quickly and efficiently deal with the stacked enemy Broodlords.
Sometimes that could cost you your life.
Right, well, I mean, it's more because they have Ghost, right? So long as they have the continuous DMAT, it's a lot safer than if you're just an Overlord doing it on your own.
Yep, that is true. And now, with the Destroyer being at 10 shields and protective field and a lot of armor, you know, he's not taking a lot of damage from those missiles, the missile boats. Although now he starts to get there once he has no energy. But it's still anyone's game at this point. I mean, if any ship dies, really, it could swing the farm lead back. So it looks like both teams are still able to push quite well both ways.
This is really where the Overlords start to pick up a little bit against the battlecruisers. 14 range on Side Blast versus 10 range on missiles means that really it's the Overlords kiting the battlecruisers sometimes at this point. Battlecruisers more effective at maintaining the push against Singularity and Laptop Panda, making sure that the Dreadnought and Colossus can't do everything they want to do all the time. But against the Overlords, they really struggle. We've seen that multiple times with Eddie being just constantly abused by Nox in particular.
Yeah, not only the battlecruisers, but the frigate and the Guardian also. The only thing that outranges the Overlords is the Broodlords.
Yep. Well, and the opponent Overlord, I guess, as well. But yeah, that is a good point. Maybe one of them is going to work into Siege. Let's see if that's the case. Luigi's going into upgrade now, so that they're again trying to pull a quick one by having a ship go in and upgrade while the other ones are out on the field. It should be interesting.
I'm going to observe that War Alistair has also picked up mines. They are still level 0, but at 525 energy, he can create positions where he can either set up surprises for the enemy team or prevent a big push against his team. He's not.
Yeah, and so far he hasn't put them all in one big clump. A lot of times you'll see pretty good players put their mines all in one big clump in big patches. He's kind of just started scattering them everywhere, which
Ooh.
actually could be very dangerous.
Ooh, Nox has shot an immense side blast. He's doing a whole 3,300 damage, and QQQ is now battering him back, doing a little bit more. He's doing 3,600. But both of them doing immense amounts of damage. Lucky Devil might be in trouble here.
It seems like with Ghost there, Lucky Devil will be okay. One thing to consider here is that even though War Alistair is spending energy on mines, ultimately, without having upgraded them yet, if he does force LSD to be using a scan more frequently, and either Overlord to get Spotter, which neither of them have yet done, it could be a cost-efficient upgrade. Do want to also mention that LSD has now picked up Nuke. But there's definitely no attempt to be secretive about the mines. Laptop Panda has popped several just now, and he has also picked up Invulnerability Shield.
Yep, and so the reason why he's actually putting them down is for a little bit of vision and a little bit of psychological intimidation. One, it's providing vision for the Broodlords, it's providing vision for the Tempests, but it's also causing the other team to be a little bit more paranoid and to spend more time potentially scanning around. While you'll notice that they're not really upgraded, they're not really clustered, they're not really trying to kill anything, they're just there.
Well, I mean, you have to think that, how do you prevent the enemy team from pushing when you don't have a support that can cover someone on your team if they get caught out of position by these overlords? Well, you just are constantly threatening the other team with damage. You can't chase us if you are going to die if you do so.
All your bases belong to us.
We're entering the 50-minute mark of this game, and there's a 900 difference in score, but with the difference in composition, you still have to wonder, does this still at this point favor DPA's composition more and more? How effectively are they going to be able to deal with this Guardian?
It's really tough to tell at this point. Both Overlords doing so much damage. Lucky Devil is a little weaker on the side blast than the others, granted, but they have kill potential. And
Nox, very good.
And ECL also, they've been very mobile across the map. They've been pushing DPA almost whenever they like. So it could go either way at this point.
So worth noting that Nox is warping home now, but Nox had swapped sides over to the top so that he is no longer covered by the shadow of what is QQQ with 1600 farm. Now noticing Luigi has just broken 1,000 farm score as well, so that's going to make those Broodlords that much stronger. Also, Luigi had picked up a while ago, about 10 minutes ago actually, he picked up Acid, which normally kind of comes before the Broodlords, but in this case it's just amplifying what the Broodlords just do.
And War Alistair has also upgraded his mines. They're now level 9, so no longer just a mine game, now an actual damage threat.
Broodlords at 20, and DPA chooses to drive right into them.
But,
guys, knowing that Broodlords have 20, I think Ghost needs Irradiate. It just came to my attention.
There's a very hot engage here on the top. Singularity now down to 5,000 life. Baby Ice also at 5,000 life. Baby Ice does back off. Damage now on Nox. He's down to 6,000. It's hard to anticipate where the damage from QQ. The DMAT lands, but he still takes damage. Nox now down to 2,500 burning, and he has to go back.
Yeah, those DMATs can only save you so much when it comes to one of those huge side blasts.
And they're going back on the tower, but I think this time they're just going to have to take it down. There's not much that can stop this. Oh, the Supreme Reign of Terror. War Alistair's explosive missiles on the tower are actually killing the Broodlings, but it was too much damage. And ultimately, QQ's Side Blast is what took it down.
And where's that Irradiate from Ghost, the Raven? Really crucial at this point.
Ghost is, of course, the least farmed ship in the entire game. with only 569. Still at 525 energy. He has now picked up Blackout. Looks like he finally had to prioritize Blackout over Irradiate.
ECL turns on their siege. Luigi deploys a bunch of Broodlords.
Q has 3600 on his Side Blast. He has upgraded his Mutalisks to level 17. Even he has Energy Blast, which is the little whip beam that the Overlord has to clear the Swarm commands off the front.
I want to observe that it's not a upgrade that is often noticed, but there's a big difference in defensive shields on each of the battlecruisers. Eddie's at 4,000, Silver's 3,650, and LSD is 3,000. So all the battlecruisers committing to some upgrades on their defensive shield, making sure that they have enough to eat at least some Side Blast damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're only going to go more energy from here on, but also the Overlords have gone, I think someone mentioned it earlier, Helveticus, I think it was you that had mentioned about the number of mutas on the Overlords, and as you saw the Broodlords go up, you see the mutas go up as well. Nox is now at level 16 Mutalisks, and Lucky Devil is at 11.
So the tower has died, but with all ships still alive, even though there is a score difference, this could still very easily go either way, especially considering this composition from ECL. No support, an hour into the game, every ship is still alive. That's coordination in terms of gameplay and cover, and also in terms of strategy and upgrades.
Yeah, and regarding those Mutalisks, QQQ at 17 mutas. Like you said, what DPA was at, QQQ is at 1 shot. So he was successful in maintaining his 1-shot muta farming, which is kind of critical to, and very obvious in his massive farm lead.
Oh,
but also critical to Nox and Lucky Devil not really succeeding in farming that well.
Yeah, it's far away from the tower, not at all threatening that, but still dealing 1600 damage on each shot of his siege mode at 2.5 speed, just about.
Baggy Ice may not actually. No, he's not actually trying to hit the tower himself, even though I think he's providing the adequate range backup for those Broodlords, and the Broodlords will be what ultimately takes the tower.
Well, I think he is aiming at it. Oh, we have a Torp on Singularity. It does not hit. There's a push on Baggy Ice's siege.
This may be dangerous.
He's
here.
not besieged yet. Nuke is on Baggy Ice. He'll get blacked out. LSD is out of shields. Gaps are on Luigi. Singularity 5,000, 4,000. 4,000 in Singularity, 1,000 in Singularity. Defensive Matrix. Baggy Ice going back with 4,000. Siphoned. 1,000 after a Side Blast. E-shields have popped. 2,000 shields. 1,000 shields. 17 life. 13. He is gone. Baggy Ice goes down an hour into the game. This is the first kill from either team. 1,000
excellent
score.
Coordinated push there from DPA to break the siege and then take down Baggy Ice.
Yep, I mentioned he may be in trouble, and indeed he was. He did not want to unsiege. I'm not sure why he didn't. I think he thought he might have been alright.
Well, I mean,
I think he thought that Ghost might not have had Blackout. Did Ghost play Blackout before this?
No, he did not
use it, yeah.
But I think, it's kind of expected that a Raven at the 1 hour mark would have Blackout.
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah,
at least I would hope so. One would think so.
It's also simply a point that no support, you stay in siege when the enemy team pushes in. That's a ballsy choice, and it did not work out for him in this situation.
And now Eclipses is left without a tank. They're all ranged ships.
I must say, the
very
defense
soft.
paying off, finally.
Yeah.
If that had been a kill on Singularity, this would have been tank for tank, which...
And there it is. Porn, he picked up Irradiate.
You'll also notice the PDDs now. At this point, I think the PDDs can only be countered by Silver, who has missile pods. No more bombard from Baggy Ice, so the PDDs will stop 2 of the missile boats on the ECL team. 2 BCs.
LSD does now have every ability as a battlecruiser, although 30-second cooldown in Yamato. And Lucky Devil has picked up Spotter, making sure that they are aware of any sorts of mine control. Also a threat on both towers simultaneously. The bottom tower actually down to 8,000 life.
Oh, they are.
2,000
the
life.
Gobies are poking at the bottom tower. Will he get it? No.
Now,
he
they
has
don't quite
been-
seal the deal, but certainly threatening that bottom tower now that they have the ship advantage.
Oh, the 2 OVs on 1 OV, even with QQQ's 2000 farm, he cannot keep up with 2 OVs.
It's worth observing that even though ECL is down a ship, they are actually still equal in score for the moment. An
You know,
impressive-
one of my players in Aces has said, you know, what's the answer to a good OV? And
A better OV?
his answer is a better OV, exactly. But in this case, when all OVs are good, what's the better than 1 OV is 2 OVs.
Well, or 2 OVs and a Raven.
Two OBs, one.
War Alistair actually might have to back off here. He's down to 5,000 total. Not quite burning, but it looks like he's still going to go heal. Question is, do they
It looks
finish
like-
off the tower here? Can
Yeah, it looked like DPA might be pushed back a little bit. They managed to hold on on Eclipse's side of the map and then push Eclipse's back. Not boding well for Eclipse. And the farm is now, the score of the game is now even at 6,300.
Yep. And as the game goes on, the Broodlords may still be threatening. However, I don't think they're going to let it go on that much farther.
certainly, you have to imagine that DPA now feels like they... I think DPA has to feel like they're in the superior position here. Not only being up a ship, but having the more obviously late game oriented composition from the very beginning of the game.
Luigi has set out some broods here to defend that tower. Try and give it a chance to regen just a little bit until DPA goes back to upgrade. DPA continues its offensive.
Tower is still, even at 1,600 life, 1 shot away from being destroyed.
The PDDs are on. Oh, look at the Broodlords. All the Broodlords have been dropped on the right-hand side. They're all on Singularity, and that Irradiate that we were talking about earlier point has come down on Singularity to cancel out all the Broodlings.
Had a defensive matrix on cooldown. It's backing off at 4,000 life. Takes another Psy Blast. Down to 3,000 now. QQQ down to 7,000. This is beginning to get dangerous for both teams. A Torp is out. Might actually hit LS. Nope. LSD goes down from a Torp!
Wow!
That is not good for DPA. Just when they were ahead, and
Nuke
now
on
the
Singularity.
nuke may actually hit.
6,000
It
life.
will
It
hit.
might hit. It might hit.
It will hit.
3,000 E-shields pop. 4,000 E-shields. 6,000 life total.
They need to
2,600.
stop
No E-shields. But no additional Psy Blast. Singularity looks like he might get away. War Alistair is trying to boost in, but Nox is pushing him back. Now 5 versus 5 in ECL versus DPA.
Yeah, DPA was threatening that tower and they pushed a little bit too hard. They stayed a little bit too long. And Eclipse was able to do a lot of damage and then finish him off with that sick torp.
I mean, it had to have hit LSD too. It wasn't that it hit the tank and splashed onto LSD. It was that it hit
No, it
LSD.
actually only hit LSD actually, and that's something I was going to comment on. That Panda had the opportunity to take it and survive. He wouldn't have done well, that's for sure, but he at least would have survived. And so he moved out of the way, but LSD did not. So I think there was potentially a miscommunication there as to who was going to take it and why. And maybe Panda thought that they were both safe, so he moved out of the way.
Well, it was just great positioning on the torp, on the line of the torp. LSD was forced to retreat. If he turned back into the towers, he could have been masked, and the rest of DPA was retreating from the torp itself.
Now, is
LSD didn't really have much option there.
Had purchased the system upgrade for the Raven.
One thing
Or
that I
maybe
wonder
the
about also
emergers.
is War Alistair hasn't really been dropping too many mines on this back. I mean, I know he at this point knows the enemy team has spotter, but he's valuing his energy actually over the mines at this point in the game.
The Raven has not dropped another blackout since that one blackout, and I think he's kind of staying away more on the back line.
As for the Raven, I think I would really like to see more D-bats than PEDs out of that Raven.
Certainly you'd want both. It's also worth mentioning that Torp and both nukes are now both back up. Lucky Devil Side Blast at 3,000, Nox Side Blast at 3,400, QQQ Side Blast at almost 4,000.
A lot of side blasts going into those OJ shields, and at the end of the day, that's all 3 damage that's being eaten.
Some push now from ECL.
Where Alistair is boosting at the bottom, threatening. His Torp is up. It's ready to push on another ship
A
again.
little bit of a push from Laptop Panda on the
Oh, Laptop Panda between all those Broodlords is not doing so hot.
Blackout
And
on Eddie
Nox-
alone.
Nox is hitting
Side Blast on
QQQ.
QQQ, he turns back.
Panda
Silver
is all
threatening
alone.
Laptop Panda, who's now at 2,700. Side Blast on Silver. Laptop Panda goes down.
Nuke.
Laptop Panda got a nuke and ate it too.
Torp
Oh, and a Torp.
is out, it's gonna miss.
And
Nuke hits Singularity, he's down to 500. Eddie is down to 500.
Eddie just barely makes it out alive there.
I did not even see that nuke. Sorry to my viewers for not showing the death of Laptop Panda.
This was
And-
a very chaotic moment.
The late game strength of the battle cruisers and the frigate really demonstrated there with their nukes and their torps just lighting up DPA and downing another ship.
Well, and you'll also notice that there were the Broodlords were focusing, so ECL was very much focusing their counters. The Broodlords went up against the Colossus, and caused Laptop Panda enough grief, I guess, to force him to go into the Broodlords, try to clear them out. He ended up getting eaten slowly but surely alive, and then at the end of the day, I think he was launched a nuke and he died to the nuke. But it was actually the Broodlords that had done the majority of the damage on his shields, while the other teammates were keeping them entertained with nukes of their own and torps.
Now, while this may seem very dire for DPA, they still have 2 well-fed Overlords and a Raven. They still have the capacity to take this game if both Overlords manage to consistently focus on a target and get them down before ECL can save that target. ECL still playing very carefully though, but there have been several close calls with the BCs throughout the game. So while they are now down 2,000 score, the game is not over necessarily.
No, and probably from the games last night that we saw, we can never rule a game out and call it over until the fat lady sings.
Certainly not with these teams, no.
Oh, Eddie has just stalled there as a BC in the middle of the field. Maybe he was busy reading some upgrades.
Well, with Broodlords and Tempests right next to him, he didn't actually need to be moving because there was no way he was being pushed on. Lucky Devil actually down to 2,000 at the moment. Singularity trying to get some gats on QQQ, but it's hard for him to maintain damage. Silver does not actually have the energy right now for a nuke quite yet. War Alistair's Torp is available. It's possible that there will be a Torp on Singularity, or otherwise just damage. He's down to 2,000. No Torp.
This is indeed a turn of events. You know, one team was up by 1 player, now they're down by another player. It's going to be tough for them to catch up back, because even when it was a 6v6, you know, the farm score there was a lead in ECL from ECL, and then now that they're down a player, it's even kind of worse than what it was.
This seemed like it was certain to go to Game 3 just 20 minutes ago. Now it could be over in who knows. I mean, it's going to be difficult for ECL to seal a deal into the mothership. They have taken both towers, but if Singularity picks up Siege, which he does not actually have yet, and the 2 Overlords with the heavy side blasts, it can be hard to finish off and get into the final base. Actually, I'm almost surprised that Singularity has not now worked to save for Siege mode. I'm wondering how else they're imagining they're going to be taking out the Broodlords that will threaten the mothership. Nox does not have his ultimate, and neither does Lucky Devil. No emphasis on Sonic Shockwave in this game, really from either team.
Oh, and Singularity is going for Silver here, a BC. Nox is focusing on Silver as well. Oh, there's a turn. Nox may be in trouble.
Eddie does have nuke up,
There's
and
a
he
nuke.
launches nuke on Singularities. E-shields have popped for Singularity.
Lucky
He is
might
locked
die.
down
Lucky
from the
will die
blackout.
here. Lucky will
QQQ
die
down
to
to
the plague.
4,000. Nox is diving. Nox. QQQ is
will
200
die
in
to
plague. QQQ will go down.
This is
Lucky Devil goes
absolutely
down.
crazy. Oh, and the
Singular
plague will
War
die.
Alistair goes down. Singularity at 1600. Side blast on Eddie. He might have to back off. Eddie dies. I'm not entirely sure to what.
This is incredible.
This is amazing.
This is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And amazing. We're going to see a third game. I was a little bit disillusioned, but now.
Are
my
we going to
hopes
see
are
a
back
third
up.
game? We still have Luigi and Silver. We still
Oh,
have some mines in the mid. DPA has not quite sealed the deal.
You're right. We cannot call it over until the fat lady sings. But you know, in this case, I almost heard a whisper.
Yeah, it's certainly no longer looking good for ECL. This is
Yeah, I think that fat lady is warming up right now.
But we saw some unexpected mothership plays. I mean, both towers are gone. The mothership is not going to be doing a lot of damage. You know, they don't have scan for DPA, so if Ghost does not have vision of Luigi, as he does not right now, you really have to. They have to be aware of where Luigi is at all times. If Luigi sneaks around the bottom to either side, he could pick off the mothership before they even get back to base to recognize him.
Guys,
Yeah, I was
want-
wondering about this. At what level would the Raven need its upgrades to be in order to be able to see the whole map with his radar?
He does have 9 range right now, so I'm not entirely sure what the range of his radar would be.
Yeah,
Of
I don't
course,
think
that's
you
just
can
an
ever
upgrade.
quite see the whole map, but I think probably the majority of it you'd probably see it with the 400. But yeah, you can never see both sides of the map unless you really spend ridiculous amounts of money on that upgrade. But what I had a question for you guys here. What happens when you have 2 ships and 2 towers? The game is approaching the 90-minute mark. I mean, there's only 11 minutes left of this game, so one side has to make a move. Which is the side that's going to have to make the move here? Is it the one with the 2 ships, 2 towers because they have 4 points in total, or is it the one with the 3 ships because they have 1 more ship than the opponent? What
Yeah,
are
that's
the
a good
rules say
question.
about that?
I don't know if there are any rules about that.
Well, so from what I remember reading, the rules were saying that it's first the number of ships and then the number of structures, but I'm not sure if they both come into play at the same time, or if if
I
you
also
win by
don't
ships,
think
then therefore
there's a time limit on Is there a time limit on semifinals matches? I thought this went until the game is won. I thought that was only for the group stage.
apparently there
There's
is.
no time limit.
And we got a criticism actually yesterday for positive criticism, of course, from one of the teams that was saying that why didn't you when you were so far ahead on the 3rd game, why didn't you stay in base and just tell the other team good luck, for the next 5 minutes you can't take anything, you can't take the base, you can't take the towers. But instead, because we went out to try to kill them and to kill their base, we actually risked getting our own base taken. So it's interesting that a person did mention it. Then I read the rules, and it did say that there was a 90-minute time limit, at which point the game would be paused, and the team with the higher ships count and or structure win. But then we have to see. I don't think the structure is actually going to stay up here, so that might be a problem as well.
Right, so if this game goes to the hour-and-a-half mark and results in a game end for that reason, it would currently go to DPA, I believe. No, wait, that's not correct. It would go to ECL because they have 2 towers and 2 ships until this tower dies. It's now at 1300, at which point it would be a tie.
That tower
don't
is
know.
no longer there. Yeah, in the case of a tie, I really wonder what would happen there. I mean, would they play another game just like that, or would they continue? Because at this point, the tie doesn't really mean anything, and the qualifier tie would mean that you're getting equal points. But at this point, you really can't have a tie.
And
we have any
Helveticus,
of
if you
the,
could slightly move your mic, I think we're getting a little bit of breath from you. But yes, this is a... We would have to probably reread the rules quickly to make sure that we understand exactly what happens. Of course, there are still 7 minutes before we even hit the hour-and-a-half mark. during which time a lot can happen. We've already had one tower go down. Nox is already back up to full energy. It's entirely possible he will take this second tower, which would seal the deal and make this a DPA win if no other ships die in the next 7 minutes.
I do believe that DPA knows about the 90-minute rule, so I think that's why they're focusing on the tower as well. So it's interesting. Luigi is at 29 Broodlords, Silver is at 10 missiles, 16 lasers, and 15 shields. He has all the spells, but unfortunately no energy to shoot anything, and this is a dire situation. The last tower has just gone down for ECL. They're trying to push, but I'm not sure that they're going to be able to.
If ECL is going to get back in the game, it has to be soon. Singularity still does not have Siege, but he does have 800 farm. He could pick it up easily. Nox with his 3,500 damage Psyblast. Even if they can't easily kill either ship, they still may very easily be able to destroy the mothership even in the next 6 minutes.
And potentially that's something that they should start thinking about right now. You know, maybe Luigi should go down to the bottom and start thinking of that's the last option. I'm not sure if they're aware of the 90-minute rule, but they have 5 minutes and counting, and that's something that's not going to favor them. Maybe they're thinking that they can hold with the Broods at their base, and that they can redirect it on the Raven at some point or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, I also
Is it not
think
that the 90-minute rule only applied to the qualification stage and the group matches? I think after that, in the bracket knockout round, what we're in right now, the games can go on until.
And I'm also
well,
pretty sure
indefinitely.
that it's captain discretion to some extent. I know that even in the game between, what was it? Ewoks and Telos, that J-Quest ruled that if the captains decide to keep playing, that they don't pause the game and quit, that the game is ruled as just continuing on at that point.
Oh, of course, but you know, I don't think that the team that's winning would let that win go just like that. In the hopes of playing. I mean, there's no benefit.
DPA certainly wants us to go to Game 3 at this point.
Exactly.
I have to think that if it does, Eclipsis is probably not going to go a no-support composition again.
And you can see these ships that are still alive. They're having a little bit of trouble. Well, it's not really trouble, but farm is a bit of an issue. All of them on
Siege is up.
DPA are at 3-shot or 4-shot.
Silver is going on, lockdown, no nuke yet. He has also not popped his defensive shield, and nuke goes from far away. Singularity, of course, still...
Look at all those farm ships on top of Singularity. They're a little bit of a hassle to him.
Corrosive on Singularity, but still, the Broodlords do not actually do much damage against 13 armor. 60 armor total. The Broodlord strike does 136, so he takes damage, but not enough to get him down very quickly.
So, I am reading here, I have the rules open in front of me, and it says under bracket stage that one team will successfully advances from the group play. They will be seated in the bracket play. The bracket play will commence January 27th, and it will consist of best of 3. Team with the most points advance in the case of a tie where there's a sudden death. First team to lose a ship in a sudden death is eliminated. However, earlier on in the rules, it actually says each game in bracket play has a 90-minute time limit. At 90 minutes, the game will be paused and the winner will be determined on the team with the most remaining ships and structures. If both teams have the same amount of players and structures, then the match is a tie. So I'm not sure which one overrules which, but yeah.
But we'll just see in a minute now whether DPA pauses the game and declares themselves the winner. Certainly in an hour-and-a-half game, there is also the emotional factor of just wanting the satisfaction of getting either the GG or the destruction of the enemy team. And with their composition, I have to imagine that DPA believes they can get the win here by conventional means.
Potentially, and I think no team really wants to take the risk of pausing the game and wasting their pause on just that, and finding out that the rules actually don't say this.
Also a matter of whether they're even focusing on the time, and here we do have a PP.
There it is, at minute 9 seconds after the 90-minute mark.
That is. Yep. They are ruling it a game win. We'll have to. I imagine there will have to be some sort of confirmation from ECL. Might be that they are talking about it and confirming. Not sure what to say here until we hear something from ECL. I know that DPA is certainly still waiting for some sort of response as well.
I wonder if we have any. Port Nexus, would you be able to verify if we have any officials online?
Let me check. We scroll up to the Saber 6
Pretty sure that
channel.
War Alistair cannot characterize I'm a Little Broodlord as a GG.
I think from what I've heard from JQuest is that there's no rules after the round of quarterfinal, the bracket match. There anything goes. There's no points. It's just whoever kills who, then that's the winner.
Do you mind checking 4.8.11 though in the rules?
Let me check on that.
It's also possible that they'll play out the game, but it looks like ECL will now read the rules to make sure that they understand what's going on. I believe that since our teams are going to be stepping out to read the rules, that we will take a little break and use the washroom as well.
Casters, do your job. Tell us stuff.
User joined your channel.
To all our viewers who are still online, I wonder if this time limit was put in place because there are 3 consecutive games, or in the case of the finals, there's going to be best of 5. So the likelihood of having so many games at 1 hour and a half each is it can be, a good 9 hours.
It's under tournament registration. I'm reading into it. I'll send you guys a link as well.
Porn, I sent you the link, and I put the link for all observers to see. There it is. Porn, this is brackets, correct?
I don't see your
Or does it say qualifiers, groups, and brackets? The three categories.
Yep, all of them have a similar statement that says that the points will be determined based at the 90-minute mark, based on the ships and the structures remaining.
Yeah, for A11, each game in bracket play has a 90-minute time limit. At 90 minutes, the game will be paused, and the winner will be determined by the team with the most remaining ships and structures. If both teams have the same amount of players and structures, then the match is a tie. I think this is like the same situation between Ewoks and TLOS.
Yep, and I think because in the absence of an actual official, it's hard to get the clarification. But I think everybody has agreed. ECL has just said okay to game 3 then, and
Well, the bottom line here in any case is that Luigi has now said they're moving on to game 3. Since Luigi is the captain of Eclipsis, that means we're moving on to game 3.
All right. Well, that's clear.
great game, and can't wait to see game 3 here.
So taking a break while the lobby gets set up, we can see that QQQ was not on the very top for the entire game, but for most of the game he's been on top of upgrade spending. He certainly was. Before the 10-minute mark, he was slightly below Nox. After that, for a little while, they were tied. They continue to be tied, but around the 30-minute mark, QQQ maintained a consistent and substantial farm lead over any other player.
And also worth noting that Luigi and Nox were tied at 227 and 228 APM on average for the game. And I wonder if for Luigi perhaps that may be the commands of the Broodlords, but for Nox that was just for that Overlord and the and his mutas.
They were also tied at farm at the end of the game between Nox and Luigi. Sorry, say that again, Neja?
I'm in a coffee shop, but does this game qualify as a bracket, or does it qualify as a semifinal game? That is the question, right?
No, it's not a question at this point, because if Luigi says that he accepts the rule that it was a bracket, then it is a bracket. I mean, I don't think that JQuest is going to second-guess Luigi if that's what he agrees to and he is convinced. Right? That's really what matters in this situation, I think.
Well, and it's clear that the tournament has 3 stages, and all games qualify as one of those 3 stages. One of them was the qualifier round, where the teams all got points for and got seeded. Then they got seeded into the group stage, and then they moved to the bracket stage from the group stage. So if this is not the bracket stage, then I would wonder what was the bracket stage. I mean, the brackets are basically the way that the porn has indicated them on the load screen, and to me, that's the brackets right up until the final. So the final, I would expect it to be capped at 90 minutes as well. I think it would be really tough. If 2 good teams get pinned against each other in a best-of-5 game, if it was not capped at 90 minutes, you may even have a game that goes all the way to 3 hours. It's not reasonable.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that JQuest does not use the word final at all in the draft tournament rules, right? I mean, he only refers to bracket play, so I don't understand how this would not be bracket play. I think that the conventional wisdom is that in semifinals and finals, the teams have unlimited time, but I don't think that's actually specified in the rules as listed.
I think what JQuest told me, as long as both captains agree, and I think that's what they need to do for round 3, is to agree before the game even starts. Maybe make it a no holds barred round. No rules. Last ship remaining wins.
And I think that's something that has to be agreed, as you say, Porn, ahead of time. It brings up a good point that maybe I'm going to have to clarify some things not only with JQuest but with the other team captain of the in the final to determine what are going to be the map preferences. Are we going to play on random map? Are we going to play on a specific map? Are we going to play on a time limit? How are we going to count the points? I don't want to have any kind of odd confusion that would then just cause headache and bad blood for any of the involved parties. Everybody should be very clear as to how that's going to be counted, and so that should probably be the very same case here.
So I'm going to step away for just a minute, but I'm going to have the speakers on. If I'd love to hear, Ninja, your thoughts on why you think or why you disagree with Abra. Although maybe you did say you didn't necessarily want to say it. We also have other people joining the channel now.
Do you think they should have a 90-minute rule and for round 3? What do you guys think?
I think in quarterfinals and semifinals there should not be a 90-minute. It's kind of ridiculous, I think.
Yeah, right. It limits.
It may limit the game options, but I think in the end, yeah, I mean, some teams may be able to abuse that time limit, right? Then they may play really passively and just to try to win it that way.
Well, so there's I've been told otherwise. I've been told the 90-minute is only for qualifications and the games, but the forum states otherwise. That it's for all 3 categories. So there's some sort of miscommunication that's going on.
Yeah, I think that JQuest, I feel like I heard that from JQuest as well, but ultimately if he didn't write it in the printed rules, I mean, if he's not online during the match, really we have to defer, I think, to the printed rules, even if we think we heard something else. But that there's definitely a discussion to be had there.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, in the worst case scenario, let's say JQuest comes on and says, "Hey, no, this is not what I meant at all." There's no 90-minute rule. They can always pick up the game from replay, you know, and finish it off. And I'm not saying like now. I'm saying tomorrow or the day after. That's the beauty about being able to start games from replays. But based on how that game looked, it did not look like a very good situation for ECL. You know, I think they would probably have to agree, and everybody would have to agree that at that point, during that turn of events, they ended up being behind while they were, I think, well ahead. I'm just happy that we get to see a third game. How about you guys?
That was crazy game.
That was one of the best games I've seen.
Yeah, it's great that the other semifinal match will also go to a third game.
Yeah, it's excellent.
This is like that Super Bowl match, you know.
I would say as long as DPA and ECL agree that there will be no time limit, that's going to be infinite time length until someone loses, that it's legit. You know, if both captains can agree on it.
Now, what are your predictions for game number 3? Let's start our predictions from the end, and then work our way to their you know, potential ships and builds and comps.
Left your channel.
But rather, you know, starting from who's gonna take this.
That's so wide open right now. For Eclipsis, that was actually their first loss of the tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that.
Their first loss of the entire tournament. That's very interesting, and you know, one might have said the same thing about Aces last night, but I feel like Aces just barely pulled it through, and you know, here it's the first loss, but sometimes it can be your last one as well. Meaning, you know, if you get disqualified, it's your second loss, and then you're gone. So, Helveticus, what if you were to put $200, who would you bet on?
I don't think
I actually I have to bet on DPA, because DPA, in beating Salvo, also annexed Salvo, and Raphael is representing Salvo by wearing Salvo's tags for this match and potentially the finals. So I'd like to see DPA move on to the finals.
You don't get any stars.
Will Raphael be playing in this?
I'm not sure. We'll have to see.
All right. Well, Porn, what's your prediction on
Well, my
who's taking
prediction
this?
for DPA.
Not
DPA
not necessarily as much who you would like to see win, but rather
No.
who do you think is gonna win?
I mean, I'm not biased towards either ECL or DPA, but I think for DPA they're not gonna put Alpha back in there since he's kind of remained on the bench and LSD's got a lot of warm up time in that game. So I think Alpha's gonna sit this out, but I think ECL learned a lot from that last game on what they need to adjust on. So
And what you're saying is that's a support. That's your subtle messaging there, right? That they've
I
learned a
mean, it
lot.
can still
That they
go either way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely can go either way at this point. That's the beauty of having such close games. And
It's really tough for me to even take a side right now. I mean, DPA, they have a talented pool of players, Knox, Ghost, everyone, and ECL, they have a lot of tournament belts under them. It's really tough.
yeah, I think ECL has, at first started off a little bit rocky. Well, not necessarily rocky, but at least the games were not so conclusive in the beginning when they came back. Now I think they learned the ships, they learned the abilities, they readjusted to the game. I think they're ready to take their throne back of their how many undefeated tournament gold stars that they have. And I think they're coming quite heavily to make a stand and make an impression. DPA, I think, is a good team. They're all talented players, but I think they themselves haven't played with each other as much. Potentially because they're not all in the same clan. Even though, as Crazy had mentioned, that a lot of them are winners from the previous tournament, but it doesn't necessarily make them, get enough practice with each other and have those
User joined your channel.
that cohesiveness and synergy that they need.
Well,
So,
let
User
me
left your channel.
ask you a really tough question here.
So if I
User
had to
joined
put
your
two,
channel.
before you ask that question, if I was to put my $200, I
Yeah.
would put it on ECL.
ECL.
Yeah, but go ahead, ask the question.
I have a question too when you're done with that one.
Who would you want to face against in the final match?
I would say generally the weaker team would be the right answer.
But don't say any.
But in this case, I would want to face the best of the best and
Absolutely.
have a good match. And if we end up winning it, then at least we know we would have deserved it to be at the top. I don't want there to be an accident and win in any kind of way. Like we were discussing that with Red Alert, that we weren't able to schedule a game, and eventually we were coming close to the deadline. We weren't able to get the amount of players that we needed at all the times. They weren't able to get the amount of players, and at one point JQuest was going to call it and say, if they don't show up on this day at this time, then we're gonna have to call it. To get the team disqualified. But personally, I didn't feel very good about that. Those kinds of decisions. I don't want to win, by having a team disqualified. And same here, I would kind of want to play the best of the best just to show and to measure our skill up against one another. And these tournaments, they come once a year nowadays, so it's we don't have that opportunity to face and play at this kind of level so often.
All right, next question. Who is going to play this game, and will ECL let the pig loose? Will he play Levy? We want to see Pig on Levy.
Unleashed.
Unleash the pig.
Let him loose.
Unleash the
Let
pig.
him loose.
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. If I was to, I don't know. If I was to let Shapig loose, I would probably let him loose the first game, not the last game. But that would be my decision as a captain. I think Luigi may differ on that one. We could see something wildly different here. I wouldn't be surprised if let's say they swapped to both their side lanes being levies at this point, they're probably going to
User
say
left
like
your channel.
DPA has already played their double OV comp. They're not going to run double OV again. Let's put two levies on the side lane, Shapig being one of them, Beggy being the other one, and then slap, game over in probably about 20 minutes, I would call it.
That would be dirty.
Oh, it looks like Beggy has just left the lobby, thus putting Shapig on and Beggy off.
He
PQQ
might play
Silver.
Levy. He might play Levy.
Sure, but that may actually be contrary to what my other prediction was, which that they would play two levies on the side lane.
We've seen Silver play Levy. Silver has actually become a very proficient Levy player.
This is true. This is true. And I think as we mentioned previously that all of them are actually able to play Levy. Luigi plays Levy just fine. QQQ plays Levy quite often too. But it's interesting that they put Beggy on the bench at this point. Because Beggy is also has been their kind of dedicated Destro player. And are they gonna run a comp with no Destros, just a Colo, maybe? Maybe they're gonna put Shipig on the Colo, who knows? What's interesting also is that 5 minutes from now, people will be able to watch our cast and be able to, think of our predictions, take that into their analysis while designing a comp to beat
User
you.
joined your channel.
So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Did we influence the outcome or did they influence us? All right. Well, what about that last spot for DPA? Who will fill it?
Ghost will be filling it. He
Ghost
went
will.
on a break.
Oh, Ghost will be coming in back
Yeah.
again.
Not
And
Alpha.
not Alpha. There's Ghost coming in. It's so interesting that all these people on the DPA are all literally in different clans. Nox being in his own clan, Panda being kind of in his own clan, and Lucky Devil, of course, making his own clan with the 666. LSD in Aces, but for the duration of this tournament, LSD has been stripped of his Aces tag. Mostly because we discussed strategies in clan chat, and Ellis had the privilege of accessing all those.
He must have signed a non-disclosure agreement before.
Yes, and of course, of course, if they play in the final, I'm pretty sure that they may not let Ellis play against Aces. Maybe some kind of conflict of interest there as well. So, Porn, tell us about this new clan, NASBF. So, North American Star Battle Fleet?
That's right. Well, it's a new clan. I'm hoping to gather top talents. And, right now I got there's three of us. It's me, Endar, and Praetor Alex just joined today.
Praetor Alex
Yeah,
previously
Praetor Alex
being
from Saber 6.
Saber 6, haha.
And he was looking for a more serious team to play with, and I think we're on the same level in terms of that. And he's really competitive. Saber 6, he told me that he had a fun time playing with Saber 6, but he's looking for a more serious clan. That's really it. And so I was lucky to be able to snatch him.
I see.
And he did tell me you did offer him at one point to join Aces. Is that right?
I do believe so, or at least it was mentioned, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean that offer has come and gone to many people, probably including yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. Aces, you guys are really talented. But you guys have so many good players. But if we all join Aces,
Then there's no one to fight.
yeah, it'd be Aces Team 1 versus Aces Team 2 in these tournament games.
This is true. No,
No,
that's
but don't get me wrong. I really admire you guys. It's you guys are probably, if not the best out there, in my opinion. You guys have really worked your way from the bottom up. And I still remember in 2015 in the Deep Space tournament, and you guys had a unfortunate match first round against 21Z.
yeah. You
Oh
remember
boy,
that?
I
Do
remember
that
that.
myself.
It was a luck of oh man, that was like the final the final round right there. The first game, the first match. That was a
truly
championship
was.
match right there.
It's the one that kicked us down into the
Yeah.
losers bracket, and then it was
Right.
hard to recover from that.
And
Helveticus, your mic is leaking. All right, thank you.
User was moved out of your
what
channel.
would you say changed since Abra since that tournament? I'm sure you improved a lot. And
Yeah, I think what we've been able to master, I think our ships a little bit better, and we've started training a little bit more together. In this case, we didn't have the players that I mean we still barely have enough players to field a team, right? We only signed up with 8 players, even though there were 9 spots possibly open on a team. But and even then, it's hard to get 6 people together. But I think we try to pick the best, select for and really dedicate our time to this. So we dedicated some time to train our individual skills, our group as a whole, and that's kind of what the secret for success. But I think potentially the game right now is a little bit different than what it used to be. So that's why the meta shift may potentially favor some teams over others, right? I mean, there used to be a time in 2.0 where there was a high favor for the levy or the guard, and ECL favored those guard players and those levy players, and they had that meta mastered. And now there's more of a shift in the strength of the ships and in the meta of the game, such that not to say that it doesn't, they're not great at it and that they're not favored, but it's just it may favor other game styles as well.
And now, if you guys were to play, let's say, compare your team now compared to your team a year ago, where do you think your team a year ago would rank under in today's tournament?
Well, I didn't have a team a year ago. I was just a solo player. I put together Salvo. We put together Salvo, and managed to have a pretty good showing this tournament. Made it to the quarterfinals before
What
being
about
knocked
you,
out by
Abra?
DPA.
Yeah, thanks.
So to say, to say that the Aces from a year ago,
From a year
where
ago,
we would have
yeah.
placed.
Where do you think? Where would you guys rank now?
Oof, I think probably the quarterfinals as well. I don't think we would have made it to the semis for sure, and definitely not to the finals. Yeah, it's tough, right? Without the commitment of all your players, and without the practice, and without the communication, you really have to develop a lot of skills. That the trust in your own players, the psychological aspects of it, and how cautious or how aggressive you have to be, and all that stuff. It all has to be very fine tuned, and I think we were completely out of tune and out of sync with that.
And what about you, Helveticus? Where do you think Salvo's going from here on?
I'm not sure. We'll definitely be staying together. Like we said before, the tournaments are very few and far between. We were wondering and talking amongst ourselves, wondering if there's going to be a summer tournament any chance for competition. We're not even sure yet. Nobody's really talked about it or brought it up, and it's tough. It's tough to keep people together and playing when between competitions there's so much time.
Yeah, and I think it's the tournament that really brings the spirit back and brings the focus back on the game. It kind of brings back the community together. But because there have been fewer tournaments in this last little period, I think the community has somewhat dispersed. And I think also in the summer it's harder because people either go on vacation or do outdoor stuff, and they don't necessarily spend as much time on the computer.
And you, Pornexus, what was your experience with TLOS last year? In the last year,
well, it's been disbanding the clan was kind of tough on me. Looking at the events I created, and you see the dates on those dating back last year. It's hard to believe that it's over a year already. That the year went by so quick, and here I am again, starting from the ground up. Now, I think with this one, it's gonna be an interesting journey. I've learned a lot over the year. I hope I grew and learned and improved. Hopefully, with this new clan, there will be some improvements.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Team 1 here, ECL needs a little bit more help. They have 8 players on, while Team 2 only has 4. So again, Crazy and Helveticus, you should get your punching gloves on. Oh. Oh, there it is. The lobby just got messed up. I think they both agreed on Deep Space. Then Luigi has said Deep Space, Triple Q has said Deep Space.
Oh, look at this. Panda's announcement. Alpha is coming back for Game 3.
User joined your channel.
Oh, what a quick change. Last minute change, and this is probably to surprise them with an unexpected comp.
Yeah, ECL had already said that they are ready, and now DPA is switching in a player.
User left your channel.
Well, yeah, did we talk to the captains about the time limit and the captain's mutual agreement? Maybe we should
We'll be right back.
mention that to them.
User left your channel.
I believe they have not decided there.
Yeah, Luigi. They said there was an agreement. Laptop said there was an agreement, and Luigi says it's going to be unlimited. Well, Singularity says 90 minutes.
This is going to have to be broken up. I thought you had to go to bed, so we can tie. How stupid would that be?
Who is the captain for Team 2? Nox? I'm assuming. So, minutes? Game 4? Uh-huh. They're setting themselves up.
No, in the case of a tie,
Okay,
it would be a sudden death.
Game 4.
Yeah, and so this is true. In the case of a tie, it would go to sudden death, and that would be the first. The first ship to die loses. Yeah.
Yeah, so in that case, that one player is out of the tournament, and everybody else moves on the opposing team.
Well, that one player and his entire team, really.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hey, Crazy, you are back, sir.
I'm kind of back. My we're still finishing up some dishes. We had some drinks here to get prepared for this final game.
Couple drinks.
Well,
a
I'll tell
couple of drinks, yeah.
Wow.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get some Jack Daniels as well.
Yeah, sorry about stepping away for a little bit there. I did still have the stream up, but it seemed like you guys had a good conversation. I was still listening to some of it, but I also have had family visiting for the last few days, and it's always good to get a chance to check with them in every few hours. This is the first time I've ever done a cast with a live human audience. So, why are you saying a 90-minute time limit? Is that what they're saying?
Yes.
So this is going to be another 90-minute time limit game. It is not. And then if it's a tie at 90 minutes, it goes to sudden death. That probably won't happen. But I mean, no one would have expected it last game, and it almost went to a tiebreaker stage the last game. So that would have been interesting. Although.
What would be a sudden death? Like, would that be a round 4 and then the first side to lose a ship loses?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's how to be. Or ship or tower.
Ship or tower.
Ship or tower.
This is correct. And the tower likely at that 90-minute mark will much more likely die than the ship. So that would be a very interesting turn of events and the way that the game's going to be played.
No, they have to restart the game and start from the beginning again. In sudden death.
No.
So I know you guys already touched on comps a little bit, but subbing out LSD for Alpha, or bringing back in the captain, really. I have to say, like, I kind of feel like there's just no chance of a Void Ray from DPA in this situation. Do you agree?
I have seen Nox play Void Ray once or twice. I'm not sure if he played it in this tournament though.
No, not yet.
Yeah,
Only
I feel like
LSD and
Nox
DPA
goes,
played
he
Void
goes
Ray.
side lane carrier or side lane Leviathan, but late game carry, but not usually Void Ray.
Right.
Do you think we will get a chance to see another example of Luigi's Guardian?
Oh, it looks
I
like
want to see some Void Rays.
it looks like Silver is invoking the rules on his own in this case. And the rules, let's see what they say about this lobby time. In the meantime, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think Beggy has been put on ice because he died first last game, or does that not have anything to do with it?
I mean, it's so late, it really could be anything at this point. I mean, people are probably just ready to pass out no matter... I mean, you want to finish the tournament, yeah, but sometimes you're just so physically tired it doesn't matter.
I think they may have been holding Shopig back on the levy until the finals, and now they are forced to let the pig loose.
I think there's at this point a little bit of bad blood, since ECL is undoubtedly salty about the game ending the way it did last game, and now there's contention on, did you tell us the map? Should the lobby start after 15 minutes because now we're invoking the rules so forcefully about every regard, right? I mean, I think there will... this is the type of situation where you have to wonder whether the anger about the way this matchup went may go beyond. Partly that will depend on whether I think ECL wins the next game.
Helveticus has taken charge of this.
The observer taking control of the pacing of the game.
I prefer the term referee.
But,
Well,
are you a referee?
Are you a referee?
In the absence of an official, I think an impartial party may be able to take such charges. Maybe not make official decisions, but at least take charge.
Well, yeah, but maybe.
I would go by what Jaquez has said before verbally, and it also does apply with the rules because he is an official and he did say it, so he can amend the rules.
Yeah, but we're referring here to the lobby chat, just teams being ready to start the game. And Laptop Panda has said DPA is ready.
So we have a countdown. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's go ahead and do a breakdown. We have Creator Ninja in Coffee Shop, but he is not in the game watching it with us. But we do have with us Abra.
Hello, everyone.
Helveticano.
Oy vey, hello, ¿cómo estás?
And for Nexus.
Hey guys, I just got back from the bathroom. Hi. I rushed.
We all wanted to know that, Porn.
Thank you for that brilliant commentary, Pronexus. We all are totally on board with you now. Certainly after 2.5 hours of streaming, it's not unreasonable to need to take a break. And so we have, in any case, Shawpig coming out in the mid, 4-3 Colossus. Luigi going side lane Dread with charges. QQQ going Plague. Silver going Imp as a Raven. Eddie going range missiles as a BC. And War Alistair as the side lane carrier. What do we have from the top?
Top lane, Nox, Destroyer with Mines, Laptop Panda, Colossus with 4-3, Alpha with range on missiles on a BC, Lucky Devil on an Overlord, Ghost
got
on a Raven
imped.
with the MP, yep. Lucky Devil just lost his Plague and Alpha lost a little bit of shields there. And Singularity down with Mines on the bottom lane up against the Carrier. It's interesting that they are running again their 3-tank comp. I think they reverted back to that with Alpha on the BC in this case, and Ghost is playing the Raven.
So in terms of the mid, it's Bork versus Bork. We have D versus D on the side, and really the only difference is D versus C on the other side lane. Will Carrier be greater than Dreadnought in this final match, presumably, of the best of 3 between Eclipsis and Deadpool Alliance?
And I like it that both teams are playing very safe here with the very varied composition and very like each one ship each kind. Something that we've come to expect from ECL. Something that perhaps maybe not DPA because they do have that double Destro, but otherwise they are both. None of them are putting all their eggs in one basket. Luigi is losing the side lane up on top against Mines, and he has Mines of his own.
Absolutely, yeah, and I've played Dreadnought in the side lane against Luigi. I know that it's always a challenge to win Mines versus Mines, especially if one Raven cuts in to get the imp off or not. And you can see the imps are actually, but now actually War Alistair has come over to take this position instead to hold the side lane and keep farm up while the rest of the team goes back to get some early upgrades at the 3-minute mark. This is a small advantage in the early game for DPA.
DPA has won the first push. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they have. It's interesting there that both teams fell back to the BORK, the Bork, or BORS, however you would call it. This standard middle composition has been the most common middle composition throughout the tournament, and also the most successful.
That's a great statistic, actually. I did not know that. The long game, I feel, will favor the Carrier.
Absolutely.
And so this is going to be interesting because it doesn't look like there's an actual kill mech other than the 2 destroyers on the side lanes, and that's may not be enough to actually be able to sneak that kill. It will be a back and forth until the Carrier has a lot of ints, and the Carrier may melt everything at the end of the day. And it's also interesting to note that although War Alistair is playing this Carrier as well, he has gone ints, he opened ints, he's going for the long int game rather than the barrage open.
Certainly if you're going to be a side lane carrier, really it's only if you need the carrier in the mid at the beginning of the game that you would go barrage. I think just about every side lane carrier really has to go interceptors.
Right now both teams are, there's a back and forth, EMPs being thrown out. and plagues, the plague mist from Lucky Devil. There's no additional upgrades. There's 425 energy on Ghost, the Raven. The opposing Raven, Silver, who hasn't yet upgraded, has only 325 with his EMP. And so they took Laptop Panda and they put him on the side lane against the carrier, hoping that he's going to get some lances in. However, he hasn't upgraded lances yet.
Maybe also to give him an opportunity to get a farm advantage that he can bring back to the middle and perhaps be a little more dominant than Shop 8.
What of the upgrades so far, the one that most strikes me is 4 lasers on Nox as the Dreadnought. I mean, he's going in and right now clearing up the siege creep, but that's not usually what you'd expect to see on Dreadnought at the 6-minute mark.
No, I think this was a reaction to the carrier and the interceptors.
It may very well be.
So we have system upgrade on Silver for the Raven, and War Alistair has picked up both Plasma Surge and Warping with 350 energy on level 8 interceptors.
QQQ on the side lane has taken the side lane just for a little while there, launched his Mutalisks, and that was able to take out the siege creep before even War Alistair came back. Now War Alistair has 10 ints and he is ready to launch at something, but he is just comfortable farming with them if the other team is voluntarily retreating. One thing to observe here is the very good line, very good distribution. There's a warp trick being set up by Laptop Panda. Maybe this is their kill mech. This is how they're expecting to win this, is by setting up a warp trick with their 3 tanks.
Interesting that he's chosen to go along the bottom side where Eclipsis is playing Luigi in a Dreadnought rather than the top side to try to get the carrier.
Oh, and there's the scan and they are seeing it. So it's quite interesting that they even got as far as they did before the scan was thrown down.
So even though they know it's coming, he could still possibly get just on the edge of this Dreadnought, but it seems like there's no way he's going to get a kill here.
No one was warping though. It's just only now that they started warping. The warp came in so late. I almost would have wished to see them come out straight at that point.
Yeah, now they're going to end up...
has stayed out to farm. He's still very much exposed. I think if DPA cuts straight across, they don't even know he's there, actually. They would be able maybe to do some damage to him, but definitely not to kill him at this point.
And here's the thermal lance. Started taking out the ints.
Ghost does have radar.
Where Alistair made a fresh batch, cooked right out of the oven, and it's almost gone. Oh, big plague. Plagues went on both sides. Only one plague hit 3 DPA ships, while the other plague hit only 1 ECL ship. And
Definitely
again,
a big difference in Colossus play. Shop Pig staying in the mid with Hardened Shield, while Laptop is in the side, siphoned at the moment, but with Turbo Planes.
and ECL is taking a while to upgrade. They do go in. It seems almost like they go in to take turns, almost to protect their towers, even though I don't think that their towers are under any real threat. But it looks like they're having a hard time really pushing.
Yep, and just over 10 minutes into the game, ECL is down about 300 score.
Still with the stronger later game comp, right? I mean, unless it would take more than 300 to make a massive game difference, right? If they can keep it within 300, I think they can stay in the game to the late game. The risk, of course, is just, do they let the farm lead expand? Do they let the 300 farm lead become a 400 or a 500 farm lead? At which point they really are in trouble.
I think as the carrier advances in ints and he keeps swapping side to side, I think we're going to see more and more counters. We're going to see contaminate, we're going to see pods probably at one point, and we're only going to see more and more lands from there.
Although at the moment,
And
Alpha
lasers,
can't
more
even afford
lasers.
lockdown. I mean, how do you build your BC at this moment? It's a really big question for Alpha.
Lasers!
I mean, with 250 minerals, 275 energy, do you grab lockdown or what do you spend it on?
He is a bit underfarmed.
Well, everybody who wants to spend it on lasers, put your hands up.
Oh,
I
he
would
did
only
pick
put
up
half of
pods. He picked
managed
up
to get
pods and 2 lasers.
At least he got 2 lasers. That's good.
Well, 2 is better than none. But pods is certainly the choice here. I think they're trying to really shut down the carrier as soon as possible.
But that means no
And,
lockdown for the Dreadnought, which can become a threat as well. I mean, it's interesting that Luigi does not have hull at the 13-minute mark. He got protective field bots and, you know, the charges all before he got hull.
Waralister has gone back, warped back early, came back with 15 ints, and is going on the side with the 2 Destros who can't effectively counter the ints very well. So good choice on his end. He looked exactly where they are, who's on which side, and he went on the side that didn't really have a counter.
And absolutely, and I can't believe I didn't notice this earlier, but Singularity does actually have siege mode. It seems like there's the emphasis that, you know, let's get a tower early here. Of course, he can't cast it quite yet with the interceptors on him as they are right now. And sometimes you wonder if you get that early siege against a carrier, are you going to be able to really cast it when you want? He is going very low here. You wonder, he's threatening and thinking about the siege mode, but he just can't get it on.
And the new fresh batch of ints is coming out, clearing out. They are trying to deny. Oh, there's the siege.
He's sieging!
Already! This is really early.
And ECL is pushing into
And
it.
he's targeting Luigi. Why would you target Luigi? There's no risk of nuke at this stage, presumably. He does turn. What is he doing? Oh, he's unsieging. Okay. Interesting play from Singularity. Shopik is actually rather low in shields right now. It's going to be hard to push out, but Singularity is down to 3,400. Can't imagine he has protective or emergency shields at this stage.
He will be dematted here soon by Ghost, as soon as he gets... The ints are on Alpha, but I think Alpha is okay. And
Oh, War Alistair has Gats on him. 3,400.
Oh,
100. Eddie dies.
And
War Alistair dies.
Shopik
Shopig is at 1,500. Silver is at 500. It seems as though this may very well be the... Oh, no, let's not speak too early. Lucky Devil is at 2,000. He has Gats on him from Luigi. 1,000 on Lucky. Luigi turns back. Luigi goes down. And I don't want to speak too early here, but it seems as though this may very well be DPA going into the finals.
This is a 20-minute game, and it's very important to note that DPA knew exactly how to counter the carrier. They knew that they couldn't take it to the long game. They put that siege up and, you know, forced the play out of ECL, and ECL overcommitted here. You know, they may have overcommitted at their own towers, in fact.
An incredible play from DPA.
Such a turn of events, such a crazy turn of events, you know, from the first game where we saw ECL finish the game in 12 minutes. Now we're watching the complete opposite.
Yeah, Eclipse really pushed into that siege with a lot of confidence. I think they thought they were stronger than they actually were at that point in the game. And they ended up taking a lot of damage from a lance and a couple of charges.
The question you have to wonder is, how, you know, is there any way to get back in this game? They know there's already the siege, but how do you even break siege at this point? Silver does not even have enough for Blackout. He even on this big out where they've gone to the enemy base, he doesn't only have 70 minerals. He's not going to be able to get Blackout for a long time. Shopig, no invulnerability. He can cast Heart and Shield. He can get on the Dread, but he can't hold it. And what do they do?
They're looking to siege up again, actually. Singularity is looking to go and siege up on the bottom tower. Even though they've already eliminated the threat, they're not even interested in extending the length of this game at all. Here's the siege come down, and they go back to what they do best. We have Ghost protecting him, shielding him, dematting him. There's not going to be anything that they can do against the siege.
No way.
This was quite a clever move by DPA. I'm not even, I haven't even scratched the glass of Jack Daniels that I picked up, and the game seems to be already over. I mean, I don't want to call it because I don't think that there's any point.
No one feels very comfortable calling anything after the games yesterday, but certainly this is a very dire situation for ECL.
ECL's bottom tower has fallen. Singularity unsieges, and he's moving now towards the top tower.
Doesn't have any energy at the moment, but...
And I think they're trying to keep him that way. There's another Siphon, even though he only had 20 energy. There's a Plague that ended up on 2.
And... No one has really any minerals from ECL. They don't have the ability to get any big surprise for DPA at this point. They can't break out, can't get any farm. You have to imagine this is just a very frustrating way to end the semifinals bracket, especially after the seeming technicality of the ending of the last game.
And there's the siege from Singularity. He gathered enough energy. He went, he saw, he conquered. And they are now burning the village to the ground.
Indeed, and we do have just tons of farm from all of DPA. Cute Lucky Devil sitting on 1,000, Nox 600, Alpha 500, Ghost 400, Singularity 700, and Laptop Panda 1,000.
The siege is only level 10 on the Gats. They're gonna try to make a stand here. They have nothing to lose. I mean, if they lose this game, they're eliminated anyway, so they will not GG until the last ship dies.
Well, they're eliminated from. They can no longer take first or second. The loser of this match goes on to the alternative bracket for the third and fourth place matchup against Red Alert.
And this is a game we probably would have seen way too often between ECL and Red Alert. Generally we see it for first and second as opposed to third and fourth, but
has to be frustrating for both these teams. Red Alert had very strong early games in the last tournament, and then were picked off and forced into the third and fourth place bracket last tournament, and seems to they had some very contentious, very close matches against Aces High yesterday against you, Avra.
and if you haven't seen them, you should watch them, because I've rewatched it, and seeing it from a third-party perspective, it definitely brings a new insight than being in the game itself in the heated moment.
I mean, they were some beautiful games to watch.
Thank you. I take 1/12 credit for that.
Even on this back, Shopig still doesn't have enough for invulnerability. Silver far, far away from Blackout and QQQ. No chance of, I mean, I don't know what he would get. I don't know that Psionic Shockwave would even really help here.
I think the Blackout would slow down.
Blackout and vulnerability would be the two main ways to get back in the game, but they just can't get there. It's not going to last long enough. They just lost too much in that big series of plays.
That engagement was so
unexpected. And they might even lose Silver here.
Will kill.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I think Silver is going down here. It seems unlikely.
Not give up.
Silver goes down. There's not going to be any blackouts this game. They might pick off Lucky Devil. There might be a total commitment here just to get that last kill. Lucky Devil does go down, but they're going to lose Shawpig out of it, and this is going to be the end of the game right here.
Shawpig is down.
Shawpig is down.
Just shot his Blackout, and GG
there is the
called.
GG. The Overlord doesn't... QQQ goes down. So,
I'm not sure that Shapig is allowed to call GG in this case, but we'll allow it, in knowing that there's no other outcome.
Yes, indeed. Well, this was the third match between Eclipsis and DPA, and DPA takes it with the timeout win on Game 2 and the definitive win in Game 3. Thank you to my co-casters, Abra.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Crazy, for having us, and these were some great matches.
Absolutely. Havadakano.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us and watching these great games. See you in the finals.
Absolutely. And poor Nexus.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching. See you soon.
See you soon, everyone. And thank you for watching. If you get a chance, do subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow on Twitch. And I will see you for the finals match.